All right, so the first thing we're talking about, we're using script analysis. We're talking about external and internal dialogue / actions. This stuff comes from juliaamante.medium.com. It's letter B in the syllabus. External dialogue is what the characters actually say, the words that come out of their mouths. Internal dialogue is what the characters may be thinking. It's the unspoken part of the dialogue. If the script is written well, characters won't always say exactly what they think, and they won't say exactly what they mean either. Think of a scene where someone is annoyed by another's passive aggressiveness. After a day of spending time together, the other asks, "What a marvelous day, don't you think?" The other one, who's annoyed, clenches their jaw and says, "Yes, it was." The external dialogue is telling us, yes, it was, but the internal dialogue is saying the opposite. The fact that she's clenching her teeth makes it clear that, she's having a hard time saying this next thing and agreeing when really she's not really feeling like it was a nice day. There may be clues in the external actions of the character which give away how they feel internally, like when the character clenches the jaw. Those can often be found in the script. Someone shaking their head while saying yes, and other hints like that. Beyond that, you need to find the context of the situation to come up with what is really going through a character's head. Most likely, there were clues throughout the day of them hanging out in the script that showed the one character was not having fun and was getting annoyed by the other. So once we come to our dialogue, even without the other character clenching their jaw, if that wasn't in the script, we can still put it together how they really feel. And so their external dialogue of them agreeing, we can clearly understand that the way they're saying that, they don't really mean it. They're just saying it to not create conflict with the other character through external dialogue. Hints can also come from other characters' dialogue. Like a scene where kids are throwing eggs at a house. One of them's like, "Come on, David." This can show us that David's hesitant and maybe uncomfort in the situation, uncomfortable, and maybe their uncomfort in the situation. Showing us that he doesn't or probably doesn't really want to do it, even if his next external action is grabbing an egg and throwing it at the house. This next stuff comes from gointhestory.blcklst, so blacklist without the verbs. What am I thinking? Spelled weird.com. Letter F in the syllabus. Finding the emotion a character feels will find you the subtext of the scene or dialogue or the moment. In dialogue, something is being said, but something else is also being said underneath, the subtext, the way the character actually feels. It's what the character really means or thinks instead of just what they are actually saying. With actions, something is being done, but there's another reason for it in the subtext. Someone is externally and physically walking to a part of the room where a party is taking place. They might accidentally bump into someone, turn and step back a few steps to avoid someone hitting into them, and eventually make their way to the part of the room that's near another person. Internally, they may have seen a person they thought were good looking and decided to make their way over there in the hopes they'll strike up a conversation. So externally, they're just walking over there, but internally, there's a reason for it, the subtext. Some of this subtext will be obvious. Some will be a bit more difficult to find or to figure out. If you've already gone through the script looking for the given circumstances, like we talked about last week, you should already have a good idea about this character and who they are, and can find the clues, hints, and mannerisms that will help find the internal dialogue and action that coincides with the external stuff. You may find a character says certain words or does certain actions when they are upset. Once you find one clue to them being upset in that moment and connect those dots, you can then assume there's the possibility that they are internally upset with each moment that happens. Always question how that might change the scene and if it makes sense for the story. So just because you have an idea, that's why we're always talking about when you're doing script analysis, you come up with possibilities. Just because it could be this, you always want to find a clue or something in the script that shows that this is the reason why this could be a possibility of what they're actually thinking. And the reason we do this is so we can figure out who our characters are, what they're actually thinking. As directors, if you're directing a scene, and as the actor, you usually want to know what's going on with your character, what's their motivation, why am I doing this? What am I really thinking in this situation? Because that's going to make them portray the performance differently. It's going to make the scene come across a bit more complex and layered rather than just surface level with the external dialogue.
I would just add when doing that, try to be careful not to make it too heavy-handed when writing it out or when
you're not writing it out. We're talking about script analysis after the script is written.
Yeah, I know, but later you will have like notes, won't you? During the
you make notes while doing script analysis.
Exactly. Yeah? So I'm just saying, like, be very careful when doing that to try to explain this, like, oh, what are subtle ways we can do to convey this, or what are obvious ways that aren't too heavy-handed. Like, think about multiple ways of conveying that emotion or conveying that subtext, because there are more than one.
Yeah, and that's why there's possibilities there. And that's why you have a discussion with your actors or the production designer about it to like, what do you think? And then come to a conclusion and decide what the best course is, what the best choice is for the situation. It also needs to make sense with the script and with the story as a whole. So if you're finding that some of your internal dialogue for one scene doesn't really make sense for the script as a whole, or for the next scene that it leads into, then you probably want to think of a different possibility for what they might be actually thinking. Also, like Priscilla said, just because you know what's going on in a character's head when you're actually directing the scene or you're doing different parts of creating the scene, like if you're doing the production design and stuff, you don't want to make it too in your face. You don't want to make it too heavy-handed. It's subtext for a reason. It's something that other people, the audience should be able to think about, come to the same conclusion, but not be specifically stated or told exactly what's going on. In a bad script, you won't really need to find some of the subtext because it's just said in the dialogue. Oh, I feel so bad right now. Like those kinds of lines. So in a good script, we're talking about good scripts that are written with layered characters where they've done their, rewrites and stuff to actually make these characters seem more real. That is when you'll find a character might be saying something, but they're meaning something else. And then you can decide if the other character's picking up on it or not. And, that's what creates all these vast differences, no matter how many of the same script is given to different people. That's how they can come up with these different scenes so much, because they can come up with different internal dialogue and internal actions that is happening with the external. The external is easy to see and hear, but the internal stuff is something we got to think about and come to a conclusion based on several different possibilities. Does anybody have anything to add or any questions or comments about that? Like I said, with script analysis, we're just kind of going step by step with it each week.
So I have one comment which I want to make is you did mention about choices, and choices are numerous, right? Some choices are made by the director, and some choices may be made by the actor. And some choices may be comfortable for the actor to perceive, right? So to pursue with, but it may not be agreeable to the director. I think that's kind of comes out to be more like a on the edge case. But from a subtext perspective, getting that subtext into the scene, text into the scene is critical to go, what vibes, what rhymes with the actor, because he's eventually the person who's bringing it onto the scene. So that's something which is again, on the borderline case as to how the director perceives it. But those options and those choices are what gets explored during the script analysis phase. That's something which you mentioned.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And that's why like it's so important to do, because if you don't, especially if you're the director and you're not doing this stuff, you're not figuring out several possibilities, and you go to the actors and they're like, well, why am I doing this? Why is my character doing this? And you don't really know. Or like we're talking about pitching and marketing, if you don't know your film, you don't know what's really going on, then you can't really explain anything to anybody in a pitch meeting if they're having a question about, well, why do they do that? And you're like, because
Yeah, we see a lot in like movies and TV shows, them joking about actors overanalyzing. I'm like, oh, what's my character's motivation? No, they make it as a joke, but it actually is something very important to be able to explain to your actor, to be able to understand,
to be able to explore.
to be able to convey. Yeah.
And another thing with it, with subtext, is that, the reason you find it is so you can describe how it is with each other. You can make it, you can choose those choices, or have several different choices and options, because the actor's performance is going to come out differently, even if it's just slightly. But it'll come out differently with each if they're actually paying attention to those different pieces of information of why the character's doing this, what are they thinking in their head. And that's why there's those, the director tricks of like, play it this way, like they just got in a fight with you before you came into the scene. You do all this so that you can get them to do the performance that the director wants. So you're not really trying to have these separate performances that don't work and that don't work together as a whole, like from scene to scene. You actually, as the director, they want it to work as a whole, and when it might not make as much sense to other people because you're jumping around in the script. But if you come up with, why they're doing these things in each situation, and if you have several possibilities, you can explain that to them and have them do it, and then see, oh, I don't really like the way they're doing it. They're not doing the external action, and they're not saying it the way I was thinking they would. So now let me try this other choice and see what they do with that. And you can do that in table reading and rehearsal, and it's all the way up until this actual filming. And hopefully whenever you get to filming, you guys have figured it out, or at least hashed it down to like a few, like one or two choices. Because at that point, it's very time. You gotta be doing it right then and there, and it's very time constrained. You don't have much time to do that, so you can't really explore as much. And that's why there are rehearsals. That's why there are the table read, so that you can explore those things, discuss it with the actor, and get them to come to the same conclusions as you would like, as well as the production designer and anyone else involved in like subtly hinting at what's going on in the scene. All right, so we'll get into more with script analysis later on. Oh, we're also going to have an exercise on script analysis at some point after one of our movies. Anyway, moving on from that, we're talking about social media, specifically like with marketing, and just like some that might be good with for filmmakers that isn't necessarily marketing, but it's more like networking. Mostly we're talking about marketing though. This stuff comes from Filming Life Academy. It's letter O in the syllabus. Don't worry about how many likes, comments, follows, and shares you get. Instead, you want to focus on building relationships with the people already commenting on your media and posts. Interact with their posts, reply to comments, and build relationships. Over time, you'll build up a following of genuine people who are interested in you and your work. Don't just post and leave when promoting your stuff. Be sure to check back in and reply when you can, and be a member of whatever social media platform you're using. You don't just want to spam it with whatever, with self-promotion, and then, nobody hears from you until you have the next self-promoting post.
I know sometimes that can sound like, it can feel while we're doing it a little like, oh, I should be building more. I should, in the moment. But at the end of the day, if you don't nurture the audience you already have, you're going to end up losing them in the pursuit of a larger audience. So you have to invest where you're at as well as trying to grow. You have to find balance between those two.
Plus, you want you want more, of course, but if you had a choice between fewer but more authentic and actual fans of your work compared to more but more generalized and less caring about what you're doing, you should want the less, because the less will spread the word about your new projects. They'll help market your stuff. They'll go see it. They'll be the ones to buy the tickets to it. If you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, they're the ones to help out and get their friends to help out. So you really want to focus on the few and try to build those few into a larger group of people that really actually genuinely care about your work and care about you or your production company.
Also, because more often than not, the few, once they actually really enjoy something or find something that they care about, they do tend to recommend it to other people, the people they know, the people that they think would also like it. And then that expands, It's like a store. You have some loyal customers like your products, like what you're selling. They will recommend it to people they know, and those people will also like it and then recommend it to more. And that's how you gain an organic audience.
Organic following. Yeah, and that's how you keep building it too, is because now the new people that come in, they have friends, they have family. Then if they get one of their family members, well, they have their own friends, and then so on and so forth. And you try to hopefully expand it out that way with more people that are actually looking for your work, that are actually looking for the kind of stuff that you make, instead of just posting it to everybody on Facebook, hoping that everyone will see it and go watch it, because that's not going to happen. Also, be sure to use all of your social media accounts to help drive people to your website. Make sure you have your name or your company's name and location are highly visible on your profiles, on your social media accounts. You want people who glance at your stuff, who are curious and want to see more. You want them to easily be able to find where to find more. So your website, your name, or your company name, if it's a production company profile, make sure that's easily seen. Be sure to also share your work and films and share them more than once, but not all at once. You don't want a spammy account. You do want to kind of share it over and over again over the course of time, because people will forget. Even if they mean to go watch something, they'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot that person made that. So you always want to kind of do little reminder posts and stuff like that and share it. But you don't want to do it over and over again all day, and you don't want to do it as your only thing that you do on your accounts, because then it can be kind of, what's the point of coming to this account if all they're going to do is spam their work? With each social media, be sure to upload content directly to each instead of just sharing a link. One, it's harder to get people to click to go to see it if it takes them to another site. So if you are on Facebook and you're linking something to a YouTube channel, it's going to be harder to get people to click it and go see it. And two, sites like Facebook don't like people leaving their sites. So you'll be working against that platform's algorithm. It won't want to share your content because you're driving people out of their website. So you got to think about these things whenever you're posting on social media accounts. The social media platforms themselves want people to stay on them as long as possible, to keep staying on them and scroll through everything, comment, share, engagement, because that's better for ad revenue and all of those types of things. It's better for their overall forecast and whatever else. So you want to work with that. And that is why a lot of the sources were saying, be sure you upload, if you have a video or you have a trailer, don't just link to the YouTube trailer on every account. Upload it directly to Facebook, upload it directly to YouTube, upload it directly to wherever else. That way the people on those sites can see it, and you'll also reach a farther audience than you would by trying to link people back to a different site. If it's a teaser, upload directly. If it's a film or a short, consider taking a part of it, of the film or short, and uploading it directly. And then having something like, to see the full thing, you can check out my website, or you can check out this thing. If the full thing's available on YouTube, that might be a way to link it. It's still working against the algorithm, but it also has a higher chance of creating activity and engagement, which works with the algorithm because you have a part of the film actually uploaded directly to whatever platform you're using. So if Facebook, you have part of the film on there, just showing what it's like, and people are commenting and liking it, then you do have a better chance of Facebook showing it to other people that they think might like it too, even though you are also including a link to a YouTube movie outside of the website. We've also talked about this some already, but be sure to share personal experiences and stories. A great way to do that is by sharing your behind the scenes or stories of the production, like the problems or successes or how you got over hurdles. And that will help make your account unique and give others a reason to follow you. This next stuff comes from fablehouse.tv. It's letter P in the syllabus. As a filmmaker, social media can be used for more than marketing. You can also use it to network with other filmmakers and grow your connections. Facebook, they have many different groups for filmmakers, ranging in specificity from filmmakers in the US to indie filmmakers in a specific state or area. One that me and Brian are in are DC, Maryland, and Virginia actors, extras, and filmmakers. That's a group for our area. And there's also plenty of others that I'm involved with that are just for independent filmmakers from specific areas, or professionals, or investors. There's all sorts of those types of groups on Facebook that you can join to start trying to network and meet people and talk to people and maybe find some job postings and that kind of stuff. Joining those groups and participating in discussions will help you connect with others in your area and at your level, especially if you join the right ones. They are not places to just promote your latest work shamelessly. In fact, a lot of them will just kick you out if that's all you do. Think of it as a way to build your reputation as an authentic filmmaker in the online community. So you want to help, you want to post things that are just maybe questions or comments or whatever, and then you also want to comment on other people's posts and actually participate in whatever group it is. If you just go in there, same thing with Reddit, with the subreddits and everything. If you're just going in there to self-promote, people usually just dislike it or just ignore it, or you get kicked out of the group entirely. So it's not really the best place to try to do that type of stuff. They're more for networking and meeting people. Then you have Twitter. Twitter is a great place to converse and network with other filmmakers in all levels of the industry. I'm sure you guys have seen where it's like sometimes you might comment, or somebody might comment or retweet or tweet to somebody that is famous, or somebody that is higher up in the industry or something like that, and they'll actually retweet or comment back. So you can actually start a discussion with some people sometimes. It's not often, but it does happen, and it does have a chance to happen. Beyond that, there are plenty of Twitter accounts that focus on filmmaking and just kind of give out information, helpful information about different jobs in the areas, or different movies that are happening, or just different information about cameras and gear. There's all sorts of different accounts that update people based on whatever information they are posting about, tweeting about, I guess. And there's Instagram. Instagram can be a great place to share clips and photos of your work and behind the scenes of the process. You can find a bunch of other filmmakers, especially using hashtag keyword searches and more, to connect, comment, and follow others. Cinematographers, photographers, directors, people who have a lot of pictures or video clips and stuff like that. You'll find a bunch of them on Instagram because it's one of the best places to post all of your work in an easily accessible and concise way.
I would just say, as someone who uses Instagram a lot, try to make your hashtags as specific as possible, because lately they have been spammed to death. And there's a lot of people that use just random hashtags for just so they can get more viewers. So as specific as you can make it, like, oh, your area, hashtag Virginia film or something like that.
And you might find that you might connect with people better that way too. People that are wanting to follow other Virginia filmmakers, if that was the thing, or people who are just wanting to follow a filmmaker, independent film, something like that. And that way they can, if they're searching for that, they're trying to find people that do that specific thing. And the more specific you are, the better chance you have of actually getting somebody who's looking for your work, instead of just saying like Hollywood movie when yours isn't. Just because people look that up, yours is an independent film. So doing that is actually could work against you, because you could get dislikes and stuff like that.
Yeah. And also, it's just, you can discover a lot more things that way too. Like if you are, you can discover new people, new pages, new projects to support. The more specific you are as well.
Yeah. All right, next there's LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great place to have a professional look and then basically like an online resume of sorts. You can search for other filmmakers and specific job roles to find other professionals. I've heard of people searching it just to find people, crew members for their new project. Just keep in mind that it is a more professional atmosphere. So you don't want to appear amateurish, even if that is what you are. You want to try to appear as professional as possible when using that site. And it's not really the kind of place I would say it's not really the place to promote yourself that much. It's more to make connections and meet people. And you'll meet, and some are really willing to talk and give advice or help if you have questions and you want to ask an industry professional that has done quite a bit of different work in a specific field. I've used it a few times to actually ask questions about stuff that I was wanting to know for this study group. And a lot of them they weren't like jerks. They were actually like helpful and nice. So
you also have to remember that amateurish doesn't mean low budget. It means you don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
Or what you should be doing in a professional setting.
Exactly. So focus on that. Like, just because, don't think, I'm low budget, I count as an amateur. Not necessarily. If you know what you're doing, if you're acting, if you're professional,
amateurish would be posting or messaging every single filmmaker that you come across your film and saying, watch this. I mean, that's not professional. So
yeah,
that's like something, like if you start a conversation with somebody and they ask, what do you do? And you say, I recently worked on this thing. And then they ask, you have a link to it. Then you can give it to them. But just posting it and spamming it to random people, that goes across the board for every media, I would say, but especially stuff like LinkedIn, because that's seen as more of a professional atmosphere.
And have as much, when it is LinkedIn, have as much information, reels as possible, because that will make you look more professional as well. Like, even if it is a lower budget, learn how to write it correctly, format it, like have all your information on there updated, your phone numbers, that kind of thing, because that way it'll look more professional as well.
Mm-hmm. Some other sites to be aware of as a filmmaker are Mandy, which is a film and TV jobs posting site for the most part. There's also Stage 32, which is a social hub as well as learning hub for filmmakers and industry professionals. Well, we already talked about this, but IMDb Pro especially, for credits, finding information about budgets and different films that have come out. Vimeo and YouTube for sharing work, trailers, and behind the scenes. Snapchat for quick clips and short lifespan posts because they get deleted. So if you're there, it's a good way to maybe spam a bit because you can keep reminding people daily and it's going to get deleted. Whereas other social media, it's on the wall unless you physically go delete it.
Oh, another option is Instagram stories. You can have a highlight reel where like you can post it on your stories, the stuff you're working on. And if you want to like keep it for people that are interested so it doesn't go away, you can create a highlights tab where all of those stories can be saved.
Right. So that is definitely something to look into. You always want to know, like, whether you're using it for networking or whether you're using it for marketing, you want to know the different platforms and how they work and what's the best kind of strategy to use with this platform, because you shouldn't use the same strategy with every single one. There's different demographics of different people on different websites, and also the way that the actual social media apps or websites work is very different from each other. Like Snapchat, it deletes itself after like a day, I think. So you don't have to worry about it being clogged up with a huge wall of just random posts and random things. You can just keep posting different things to try to entice people to see your film, and it'll delete after a day, and then you can make a new one if that's what you want to do. It still would come off as spammy, I would say, if that's all you do, but it would at least be like only one post a day instead of 100,000 on a wall that you just keep scrolling down the whole thing and it's the same thing over and over again.
Also, a thing that would help with that is when you are creating posts about your work, don't make it, you can do that without making it feel like you're promoting yourself. You can do it and make it just feel like, hey, this is my day-to-day. This is what I'm doing today. Like, it doesn't have to come off as overly promoting. It can come off as just sharing my life. This is my life. My life is working on these things and creating stuff. That is your life. So you can like show that in the sense of like, hey, this is what I'm doing today. It's super fun. Or, oh, we're getting a lot of work done today. Just talking about what you did.
Yeah, and that's like showing the behind the scenes or like the look behind the curtain kind of thing, where it's not exactly, it might not even be behind the scenes, it's just kind of talking about your day, like she was saying. And that is different from what most of these websites and stuff that I'm talking about were suggesting not doing, is spamming. And they were looking at it more as like, if you already have a film or you have a project that you're completed, don't just spam, or you have a script, don't just spam it being like, read my script, watch my film, and just go into random groups and go into random social medias and just keep doing that over and over again, because that's not really going to get you any fans. It's not really going to get you a following at all.
More often than not, it'll give you the opposite effect, because me personally and most people that I talk to, when they feel like a page has become just one thing, overly promoting themselves, or feeling like they're spamming you all the time with the same thing, unless they really care about that thing, they kind of get sick of it and annoyed, and they just stop following it. Oh, this is all you talk about. We get it. You have a thing.
You have a film, we get it.
A million
Talk
posts
about
a
something
day.
else about the film, like the behind the scenes, or like, oh, I remember in production, this, not. And that stuff's a lot more interesting and captivating than just, we have a film, I have a film.
Yeah, another strategy would be, if you want to talk about your film, you can send, like, let's say you post some stories talking about the experiences. Okay, guys, I just thought anyone that's interested, I'll do a few stories sharing my experience with this film that we shot, blah, blah, blah. You can create that. And then again, like I said, have a highlight reel. Or if anyone that's interested, I'll leave like a link to a video, the YouTube video that I made talking about the experience, or my website or name if anyone has any questions. And that way is like, there's multiple ways you can do it where it doesn't feel spammy, where it doesn't feel like you're just desperately trying to get people's attention, and it feels genuinely authentic and natural.
Yeah. All right, the next site you want to maybe consider is, I think it's Behance is the way it's pronounced, but I don't know. It's like a mix of Instagram, LinkedIn, and Mandy, and it's designed for clients looking to hire talent. I don't know if it's paid. Some of these, I think like Behance, Stage 32, and Mandy, I think some of those might be you have to subscribe and
I know
pay.
Mandy for a fact
IMDb
is
Pro
paid.
also is a subscription-based one, of course.
Last I checked, I know Mandy for a fact is paid.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, some of the, but they're just good to be aware of because they can help you network or post jobs or find jobs. And there's also tons of other sites that we'll get into way later in the semester. But
Or am I getting-
there's also Reddit for asking questions and getting involved with different subreddits associated with different aspects of film. You can also create a subreddit dedicated specifically to your work and your production company, as well as on most social media accounts like Facebook, you can make a separate page dedicated directly for your work as a creative or your production company if you have it, and your film if you have one. And you can make separate pages for each. Remember, when trying to network, being authentic is your best route. Have genuine conversations, answer people when you know the answers, reply to others, be humble, and don't treat it as a what can I get out of this situation.
Yeah, you can show interest in other people's work as well. You can ask like, hey, if there's anything you ever need as far as like help, I'd love to work on these projects and learn more. Like humbling yourself or being a part of specific conversations, it helps you learn and grow. And it also, but more than that, you create connections when you actually show interest in other people's stuff, just like how you would probably enjoy if people showed interest in your stuff, you know?
Yeah, because then you're actually creating a relationship with that person instead of just like, hey, go check out my thing.
And
I don't know you, but check it
obviously-
out.
And
Or like,
obviously-
oh, what can this person do for me? Maybe you can work on my film next time. Like instead of jumping the gun and just doing that, like maybe that is true, but you don't want to go into it just thinking about what you can get out of each situation.
Yeah, 'cause
Think about more
obviously-
what you can give to other people, what kind of value you can give them with your behind the scenes. Some filmmakers might like to see it to see how you did something because they're curious and they want to get inspired on how to do it on the budget that you had and stuff like that.
I would say, of course, every human interaction that's like more than just, you know, for a brief second is going to be transactionary in some aspect, like you're getting something out of it and hopefully there too. But at the end of the day, don't go into it just thinking that, and don't go into it solely, primarily and solely focusing on what you can get out of it. Focus as well on, okay, yes, I can gain a connection. Yes, I can meet someone interesting. Yes, maybe they can help me in the future. But right now, I just like to nourish this relationship. How can I do that?
Same with marketing on the sites. A benefit of using these to network is you'll already have an authentic footprint when it's time to start promoting your work. So you'll already be a part of some of the groups. You'll already be a part of that site and I've been using it for a while. If you're trying to network through it and gain, and like you're doing it right, you're not just trying to get people to work with you. You're networking by creating contacts and connections and friends, and supporting the others' work. Then you'll already have a footprint in when it's time to start saying, hey, I also have a thing I'm trying to do. You know, especially if you've been asking questions about like, hey, what would you guys do if this and that? And you're getting answers and help along the journey of creating that film or writing the script or something. And then when you finally have it, promoting it, you'll be more likely to have success in being included and being like, okay, yeah, that guy's been with us for a while. Like in this group, if any of you guys shared some of your work with us, I wouldn't take that as being spammy because we know you. But if you had come in right off the bat being like, here's my thing, here's my other thing, and there's my other thing, I'd be kind of annoyed and not want you in the group because it'd just be kind of annoying.
I feel like a good way of doing this would be, let's say you don't have a project yet, right? But you hope to have one in the future. Maybe connect with people that have a project in the works and get to know them better, ask how you can help their projects. And that way, like, yes, you know that you'll have a project soon in the future, but right now you are helping them and focusing on their projects and nurturing that relationship. And when it comes down to, you know, your time to work on things, maybe they'll help you or they'll have some connections. You can even while helping them at some point, not immediately, obviously, at some point you can bring up the fact that like, yeah, I have something in the works. Hopefully I get it done. Like I'm hoping to get it done at this point sometime soon, blah, blah, blah. And they might even offer like, oh, that's cool. Like maybe I can help you too when it comes down to it, And it happens naturally and organically.
Yeah. And so there are definitely a bunch of sites, and social media can definitely be used to network and gain a lot of knowledge and just gain a lot of connections in the film industry or in the independent industry for film. And so you always consider that if you're not considering just doing it for marketing's sake. Now, this next stuff comes from filmlifestyle.com, letter Q in the syllabus. You want to research monthly active users for sites and social media. The landscape is always changing. And if you can get ahead by being an active user on a growing platform, there's a better chance of you building a larger audience. Think TikTok. When it first came out, if you were part of it when it first came out, you had a better chance of getting noticed because there weren't as many people on it. Same thing with YouTube. Back when it came out in 2005, there weren't that many users actually using it all the time. And the few that did and like made some creative content, they were getting big, even though they might not in today's YouTube, where there's so many different choices of different people to watch.
And back then those cat videos got millions of views.
Yeah. Yeah, so you do definitely want to pay attention to that kind of stuff and see if there's maybe a new platform that's coming up that's growing, especially if it's some kind of video site or something that's like for photos or anything that's really good for a filmmaker to be able to showcase their work or just to work on several different projects of like small video projects.
I feel like TikTok is a really good example of that because in the beginning, a lot of people wrote it off as, including myself, as oh, it's just for people to like mimic songs and dance because it used to be Musical.ly. So, oh, it's just where people go to like dance, and it's probably going to be like Vine where it's going to be short and there's going to be like a niche audience, but it's not going to grow beyond that. And then people started thinking, wait, how can I use this new platform for the content that I want to share? And then a bunch of people started discovering creative ways to use that platform. And now we have educational TikToks, like doctors on there explaining things, and people that traveling people explaining things, and all different types of mediums now.
Yeah, so you always want to be checking out, like, is there a new platform? Is there growing platforms? Because there's analytics for that kind of stuff that you can look up just by doing a Google search. And they show like what's the growing, like what is the changing landscape of social media and which ones are growing, which ones are growing slowly, which ones are declining and all of that. And you can just Google that and find that kind of information for like each year pretty much. So you always want to like in the back of your mind, keep that stuff aware.
And Facebook, especially like Brian, no offense, bro, but you say all the time like, oh, I have Facebook, I don't have Instagram. Unfortunately, when you look at no offense really, I'm joking, but like no. Unfortunately, when we look at analytics, Facebook is actually declining a lot, and the users are majority older. So a lot of people were gravitating towards Instagram, and they still are, but Instagram right now is going through a little situation. So a lot of people are on Snapchat more. So that's something, unfortunately, when we're promoters, that we have to like look when we're promoting our work and like wanting to gain more people, we have to see like, okay, where is the audience that I want? And how do I promote this? Well, that said, that doesn't mean that there aren't still young people on Facebook. Of course not. But it just means that you're going to have to do a little bit more to target that audience on that particular platform.
Yeah, analytics are important. It's boring as hell, but it's super important to figure out like who's looking at your stuff specifically, but also just who's on this site and how many is it, and is it growing, is it declining? Or, I mean, I think Facebook's still growing, but it's just very slowly growing now. And I think I have a picture later on showing that. But Facebook is great for its groups, but it's also great for its pages. Like I said earlier, you can create a specific place for you, your film, or your production company. And as more people like and comment on your posts, Facebook's algorithm shares your post at the top of friends' feeds, which can make it expand exponentially if everybody keeps doing that over and over again. Because the friends that you have friends. And if their friend likes something, then Facebook is inclined to show them what their friend liked because maybe you like it since that's your friend. Maybe you're interested in what your friend liked. And so if a lot of people are liking and commenting on whatever post you're doing or your page specifically, then Facebook's algorithm picks it up and it's more inclined to share it with others. And then if more people keep clicking on it, it's just a feedback loop that keeps happening and expanding it further and further.
Yeah, because Facebook's got all that information down pat.
All social media does. And it's important whenever you're talking about marketing to actually be on the side of, I'm glad that these demographics and these analytics are here. It's just not good as much for a user side for privacy. But as marketing, as a marketer, you want to look at that stuff because it's very good to focus your marketing on certain demographics that you believe will like your content or like your work. You can also utilize Facebook ads to run ads for your exposure on your newest projects. Be sure to use hashtags in your posts to help get your work seen by people outside of your circle on Facebook, Instagram, and other social media like Twitter. Searching through hashtags can be a great way to find people or see how similar pages look to get inspiration or ideas for how to make your own page or profile to look better or to enhance it. The number of hashtags that you should use should be limited. Around 7 is considered to be a good number for the most engagement. More than 7, especially around 9, there's seen to be a large drop off in engagement as the post then becomes spammy looking.
Because the algorithm will feel like you're trying to see what sticks.
Not just the algorithm, it's actual people. If you see a post where it has one sentence and then 100,000 hashtags of this and that,
I immediately skip. I'm just like, no.
Yeah, because it looks ugly. It doesn't look nice. So 7 or less is usually where you're going to get the most engagement. Honestly, they show this, so I'm not sure exactly which site they're using, but 6 to 7 is usually where you're going to get 6 to 8 really is where you're going to get the most engagement, because then you're focusing in on certain aspects of somebody looking up filmmaker compared to somebody looking up independent film. You'll get both.
And I was just going to say, as far as sharing hashtags goes, as opposed to following them, as far as sharing hashtags, yes, you be specific as well, but also try to find not super generic, but generic enough to where there's a wider range of people that's still specific to your thing, but enough to where it still will have a wider range of people following it. Because that is also important, because if you make it too specific, then not a lot of people will see the hashtag or follow the hashtag.
You were saying to make it specific earlier.
No, I said look when following hashtags. There's a difference.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly what I meant. Like, as opposed to following, adding hashtags is something different. You have to think a little more balanced. Like, yes, some specific, but also some a little less specific, not overly generic, but less specific to where I can get a wider range of people. And remembering to use the hashtags, which is really hard.
I think it really depends, because if you're targeting a very, very specific group of people who like specific things, sci-fi film, something like that.
No, but I don't think that's specific. Specific, I mean, is like specific to you, like people that create their own hashtags. And only have those, for example.
Oh, and that's good too.
Yes,
but we'll talk about that later on in the semester, talking about specifically about hashtags.
Yeah, but I just mean don't only have them. That's what I mean by it.
Gotcha. Filmlifestyle.com, they say in their opinion, while it's good to have your foot in every avenue to reach as many people as possible, they don't think Twitter is as important for filmmakers as some of the other social media sites. So Twitter's not
Twitter
really
in itself is spam in a platform.
Yeah. So I mean, like, just take that as you will. That's their opinion. I don't know where I sit as far as that. side of the fence is, but this is definitely something to consider if you only have limited time to dedicate to social media marketing or networking, though, is pick the ones that you feel will best suit you or best suit your film, because not all of them will. They'll all suit you if you can have the time to use all of them, but if you don't, then you want to really curate the ones that you use. Like if you're a cinematographer, then Instagram would probably be more beneficial to you than Twitter, because Instagram, you can post your work, you can show the shots, you can show stuff that you like, you can show stuff that you were trying for, you can show behind the scenes. So that is usually probably more beneficial for you as a cinematographer than Twitter, where you can just mainly say stuff. They can also add photos, but it's not going to be as easy to look through as you tweet more and more. Just always think which sites will likely benefit me the most and which should I dedicate more time to. If you do have time to use all of them, you still want to dedicate the most time to the ones that you think are the most beneficial to you. This next stuff comes from Noam. I think it's noamkroll.com. It's letter R in the syllabus.
Me personally, I feel like other than the specific ones that are for filmmakers, I feel like Instagram and TikTok are your best bet as far as public ones, like public
TikTok?
ones.
I don't know. I haven't heard anyone talking about TikTok.
Well, it depends on what area you are, because I have seen some filmmakers on TikTok. Like I have seen them like showing their stuff.
Well,
but
TikTok is a growing one, so that could be something that's definitely up and coming as well. So
Yeah.
It's still growing. It just has younger audiences, which we'll get into analytics in a bit.
I just see those two as the most beneficial for engagement as far as like filmmakers. Oh, and also Facebook because of the groups, but I feel like Instagram and TikTok are more, just because Instagram is very image based, so you can show what you're doing and share like videos and images of that, and that's that mostly tends to catch people's eye more, and also because of attention spans, like an image that catches your eyes is gonna make you more interested than like a huge post initially. Like yes, there are huge posts on Instagram, but what you see first is the image, as opposed to on Facebook where what you see first is the huge text. And I know I don't remember which study I saw, but a lot of people, when they see a huge text, they tend to scroll by and not look at if it's attached to an image, or not even read as much, as opposed to when they see an image first, and then if the image interests them, they'll take the time to read the huge caption.
Yeah, and that makes sense because I do that all the time. So if you have a huge post, you also want to think in terms of like, if you were pitching this movie to investors or to a distribution company, then you would want to keep it brief and to the point. If you are marketing, which is basically just pitching it to your audience, you also want to keep it brief and to the point, because the briefer and more to the point it is, and the more like questions it arises without answering everything, the more inclined people will be to look it up and get more curious about it than if you give them all the answers and it's a huge long 6 pages of your script. That not many people are going to take the time to actually look through that unless they read the log line that you posted a week ago or yesterday and they got really interested in it, and then you posted the synopsis and they got interested in that, and you're like, here's a part of the script. So there are definitely different strategies to use when you're using social media to market yourself and to market your work, where you're not just blasting it all out there. And there's plenty of different things like long text that start to work against you in a way and not draw in as many people, because it's just something that people have to take the time to look through, and they might not even care about your thing. So why would I take the time to read this whole thing if I don't even like it? And I won't know if I like it until I read this huge thing, but that's a lot of time. So I'm just gonna skip.
But like I said, if it's like if it's an eye-catching image or a video, studies show that people will be more inclined to actually read the huge text.
Mm-hmm.
If that catches their interest.
Right. All right. So again, this is from noamkroll.com. It's letter R in the syllabus. Agents, film festival programmers, financiers, and talent and crew will almost always factor in your social media online audience when deciding to team up with you. If you have, especially like local film festivals, they want to see that you have a following of some sort, even if it's just 50, 100 people. But if they're dedicated and they're active in your community of fan base, they're a dedicated fan base that are actually actively commenting and liking your stuff and helping you out and whatever else, then they'll be inclined to work with you, because that's more the bigger chance that they have for selling tickets locally to your fan base audience. Just like with agents, financiers, and everybody else, they want to see that you already have somewhat of a following. So it can definitely help benefit you if you start working on it before you even have a project. If you just, before you have it finalized anyway, or before you going in for investors, if you already have some kind of following, that's just going to be a benefit to you no matter what, because you already have some audience that you're like, well, if nothing else, these people will probably come see it. And then they can expand the reach of, okay, these people are the ones who follow you, so we can market it to this demographic. And if we market it to this demographic, they will likely see the film because of the audience that you already have. Having an audience on your own is leverage, because it means it's more likely that they're going to come and they're going to help spread the word. They're going to watch your film. They're going to buy tickets. Building an audience is about attracting the right kind of people that will be interested in your work. The right kind. You don't just want to attract everybody who's going to look at one post and like it, but then not like the rest of your work and not really pay attention to it, even if they subscribe to you or followed you or whatever. You want to attract the right kind of people that will keep up with your work, that will like it, that will follow it because they like the kind of work that you do, and not just one post you made that was a funny meme or something like that. Having 200,000 passive followers is not as big of a deal as having 20,000 active followers. And you can take that number and do whatever and make it completely different and say 5,000 active followers compared to 300,000 inactive passive followers.
A lot of
5,000 is still going to be better.
A lot of YouTubers have been talking about this lately because of the whole TikTok boom. They're saying that at the end of the day, now more than ever, they're realizing and seeing that your number of followers doesn't matter if your engagement is low. So there are people that have way less followers, but their engagement is a lot higher than someone who has millions of followers.
I've seen the same thing with like YouTubers, where it's like they have 1 million subscribers, but their videos only get 10 to 15,000 views per video. And it's like, well, where's the rest of the million at? Are they not? They just subscribed and left. Like,
well,
so it's not as important to have that many subscribers as it is to have people actually looking and watching your film and liking it and commenting and all that.
Well, statistics also show that you are bound, more often than not, YouTube videos will get about 10% of their subscriber viewership.
10% would be 100,000 out of 1 million.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
So at the end of the day, 10% is what most people are going for. If you get less than that, then yeah, that's fine.
Right, which is what I'm saying. So like, you want to have active people. It's not all about the numbers as much as it's about the engagement and activity that your audience does on your posts, on your content, whatever you're putting out there. When building an audience, it should be important that the social media platforms themselves are not your endpoint, but a tool to lead your fan base to a home, which would be your website, and ultimately usually an email list are usually the best end result to keep people updated on all things about your work and about what you're doing. And social media can be utilized to help drive newcomers to the website and email list. So you still want to utilize that stuff and still want to post on it, but that shouldn't be the main place where your biggest fans, your main fans, your main fan base is. Your main fan base should be in your email list, because using an email list ensures you aren't at the mercy of the algorithm for whatever platform you use. Their algorithms change periodically on different platforms. They might like certain things and then stop liking it if it's viewed that it's not getting as much engagement or as much people on the site. And so different things can happen with that. And you want to make sure that you try to work with the algorithms as best you can, but keeping up with it can be hard to do. And if you're not aware that the algorithm has changed, or if you're just not doing something the algorithm likes, like if you're linking a YouTube video on Facebook, you want to be able to also link that stuff in an email list of your base fans that can get that information always when they might be following you on Facebook, but Facebook's not showing them because you're trying to lead them to YouTube.
Yeah, like right now, everyone was talking about how before what the algorithm liked on Facebook was like on YouTube, I mean, was how long people actually watch the video, like viewership time, and like if they watch the whole thing. Now, however, it's comments and likes. So if a video has a bunch, like if they watch the whole thing, it doesn't matter if they don't like or comment anything. So
it matters, but not as much.
Well, it does, yeah. But it's not the main thing that the algorithm is looking for anymore. Now
Right.
The algorithm is looking for likes and comments.
Exactly.
Engagement. Doesn't matter if they watched it, it matters if they're engaging.
And so that's why you want an email list. So you don't have to be at the mercy of that kind of stuff. And you can do, like, you still want to use it, of course, but you also want to be able to directly, an email list just provides one of the most direct lines of communication with your audience, where you can keep in touch with them and update them on all things. And then you can also update your Facebook and your other social media platforms with the same information. But just in case, for whatever reason, that platform wasn't going to share it out, or that person's not using that website anymore, because certain audience members, certain fans, they might leave certain platforms and wouldn't see your updates anymore if not for that mailing list. Maybe somebody who used to use Facebook, but now they've moved on. You still use Facebook as your main place to update people on your work, but the audience that you used to have is gone. If you had an email list and you drew them to your email list through Facebook years ago, then they would still be a part of your email list and get updates on your work, regardless of which platform they're now using. People that join the mailing list are also normally your most avid fans, and that can be beneficial more so than a higher number of social media followers for the same reasons that we've discussed over and over, because having active people that are your biggest fans that went to the effort of clicking on your post and then clicking on whatever you had and then going to your email list and signing up for it, obviously they want to be updated about your stuff, so they're a fan of yours. And so compared to 10 people who just glance at your post, that one person's a lot more beneficial to you, because they're going to be the ones to help whenever you have a project ready to go, to spread the word and to go see it.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah. And you still want to be sure to use social media to draw in new fans, of course, because you want to continue to build that email list. You want to build your fan base and not just have it be stagnant or decline. You may have a post that reaches 1,000 people. Of them, 100 people click on it. So the 1,000, they just kind of scrolled through and glanced at it, saw it for a second, and kept moving. 100 of them might click on it to see the whole thing. 10 might follow the account of whatever social media you're using. And then one of those might sign up for your email list. So if even that, it might be even less than that. So you still want to try to reach as many people as you can, but more importantly, you want to reach the right kind of people, the ones that will subscribe to your email list, that will like your content enough to go, I want to see what this guy's doing or this girl's doing next. I want to watch this person as they go along in their career or as they work on this next project that they're talking about.
Another good way of doing that I've heard a lot is when promoting your work, when talking about your work, remember to also keep it personable. Keep it connected to you, to what it means to you, to the work that you've been putting in it, showing that more human, personal side, because that will make people connect with you and make people want to support you and what you're doing. Because sometimes that they might not even be interested in every single project that you have, but if they like you as a creator and your passion, your vision, if they relate to you, they will more often than not support you, even if it is something they're not like as interested in.
Yeah. And so you want to be, and plus it just makes you unique, and there's a reason to follow me compared to following the production company or that other creative next to me. It's because I'm a bit different. I'm a human, so I'm unique in some way compared to the other person who's also unique to their own way. So maybe you should follow them too. But
So
me,
focusing, so
follow me because
focusing,
I'm my own person.
yeah, so focusing in on, okay, I'm going to promote my work, but I'm also going to do it in not as a pretentious way, not use as many huge words, maybe, or, oh, I'm going to make it more personal to my personality and show off my personality more as I'm bringing them along through this journey of me creating my film. Or I'm going to talk about my inspiration for the film, why I'm passionate about it, why I want to make it, what the story means to me. Like those are good ways of promoting it in a way that doesn't feel like it's just another person promoting another film,
Yeah.
just a
It
business.
makes you
Feels like a
relatable. It
passion.
makes you a person. It makes them see that you are human, you struggle, you have hopes, you have desires, you have dreams, passion. There's actually passion in this project compared to it just being for money. And whatever
Exactly.
else. So there's like different reasons why you want to make it personable and make it relatable
That
because it draws in
especially.
your audience.
Yeah, that especially because people want to know that, oh, I'm just helping you make money. No, you're helping me create a passion project.
Helping me do what I always dreamed of. You're helping me with my passion, which is filmmaking or which is cinematography or acting or whatever it may be.
Or it's also something that you should care about because it's something that you can relate to, or it's something that a genre that you also love and maybe grew up with. Like, don't make it all about you. Also, see how they can relate to you and how they can see themselves in you, or how they can see themselves in the story, or feel connected to the story. Don't always focus as much on your personality, but the story itself that you're trying to create and how viewers can connect to it.
Unless you're already done with your film, then it's a
Yeah.
different kind of marketing.
I'm just giving like different suggestions that I've seen.
Yeah, I'm just saying because that's more for if you aren't started yet, then
Yeah.
that can lead into a project. But if you already have your project done and you're starting to market it now, then you have to there's a bunch of different strategies out there. The ones that are Priscilla are saying, but plenty of people use. Some people use completely different ones. Doesn't mean they don't or do work. It just depends on what your target market is, what your target audience is, how you're marketing it, and what your strategies have been. Starting early with marketing actually is a good thing, most people say. Your work and your film means you can utilize different strategies and see what works best. If you start early as well, you can start to see like what's working, what's not, what do I need to change in my marketing strategy to reach the people that I want. Does your target market want daily posts and memes, or do they want weekly posts of general updates? That's just one variation on strategy that can have vastly different results of who's going to come see it and how your strategy goes, if it's successful or not. You can also try different strategies on different social media sites. You don't have to try the same one on every single one of them. Don't expect immediate results. Stick with it, and slowly but surely, you'll start carving out an audience and building a following of your own. Start now before you even have anything and share as you go. It may be months or even years, but you will start to widen your reach.
One thing that I also heard is don't try so hard to mimic what other creators are doing or what other filmmakers are doing, because people can tell when something's inauthentic. So make it authentic to you. Figure out what works for you and your project, and don't like, oh, this worked for this person, and like, yeah, they're similar. You can take inspiration from it, but if it feels too calculated, if it feels too mimicky and forced, people will tell and people will be put off by it.
You also want to consider your skills and what you want to do to figure out which platform to utilize most. Are you good with visuals, design, shots, concept art, and stuff like that? Then Instagram might be your best platform. Writing, do you like writing in depth and explaining every part of a process? You might want to create a blog and just use that, or do like large Facebook posts, but also link back to like a blog on your website or something. Do you like quick, snappy quotes, explanations, jokes, memes? You might want to use Twitter or Reddit. You like talking to a camera, YouTube and Vimeo. Utilize the platform that will best show your skills and what you like doing, and stick with it, even if you only have a small following, because that can grow over time, but it does take time. You also want to make sure that you like doing it. You know, if you are absolutely hating one of the social medias that you're using, then just stop using it. Because if you are hating what you're doing, then it's going to come across in your post, whether you think it is or not. It's going to be obvious, or it's just not going to have as much effort put into it as it would a site that you actually like using. So if you don't like using certain sites, or if you don't like using certain apps, then don't use them, and just use the ones that you really care about, and try to best utilize those to your strategy of who you're going after, to try to get to look at this, and who you're trying to get to be your target market, your target audience for your next project or your production company as a whole.
Also, because if you're trying to, you can end up spreading yourself too thin if you're trying to do too many social media networks, and you're good at one or another, but you're terrible at one, but you're trying to do all of them at once. It can end up being sloppy, or you can end up neglecting one over the other. So try to hone in on the ones that you're particularly good at, you know?
Yeah. This next stuff comes from filmdaily.co. It's letter S in the syllabus. There's another site called Shooting People. It's another site that's good for filmmakers to network. I think that one might cost, I looked it up. It's an annual subscription fee. It's around $40 a year, but it's specifically for independent filmmakers who can share their work, post or apply to job listings, and create or help with fundraising for projects and more. I think you can also create your own fundraising to try to raise funds to make a project, but I haven't really used it. They just described it in that article, and I thought it sounded interesting. So Shooting People, if you guys want to know, check it out.
It's actually a pretty decent price too.
That one's not really for marketing, it's more for networking. All right, freelancevideocollective.com, letter T in the syllabus is where our next stuff's coming. They recommend updating social media at least 5 times a week. Most social media platforms have scheduling features, so you can batch your content for the week in one day, and then schedule the posts to come out throughout the week. Consistency can be good for your followers to know when to check for your new content updates. Like if you upload a video to YouTube every Saturday, your audience on YouTube will begin to expect new content from you each Saturday. For social media without scheduling built in, you can use something like Buffer. And that's like a scheduling software pretty much that you can use to connect to your social media account that will post whatever you're trying to post to it in a whenever you tell it to post it.
Now the catch with that is,
Scheduling it.
I feel like, yes, consistency is like you being on there a lot is important. Engagement is key and stuff. But I feel like it's also important to post when you have something to post, because if you're just posting for the heck of it, when you are going to post something, people won't like care.
We're talking about marketing right now.
No,
So
I know.
no. We're talking like you're looking at it from a way of you're doing it just as a filmmaker. As a marketer, you should already have a bunch of stuff preset, pre-made, ideas of what kind of content you can post before posting it. Don't just post everything that comes to your head.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Come up with a bunch of ideas and start creating the different graphics or whatever it is that you're going to post, so that you have a lot of stuff to post through. If you are creating a film and you are going to market that film independently, then you want to have plenty of material to work with where you can post consistently over the course of weeks or months leading up to the film, and then weeks or months after the film comes out and it's released, especially if it's just released digitally. Then you want to make sure you can try to reach an audience as well as you can through all the content that you're posting. If you're doing it before you actually start making a film, I agree with Priscilla. Don't feel like you have to just keep posting, because eventually it's going to be that same thing of you're either going to hate it, it's going to feel like a job, or it's going to feel like not as much thought or effort went into some of these posts, and it starts to just look lazy and feel kind of like you're just throwing it out there because you feel like there should be content.
Or people are just going to ignore it. I mean, think about it this way. Like, if you have someone that you follow, right, and they only post when it's something important or when it's something big or interesting, then you're going to be more inclined to like, oh, this person posted something. If it's just a bunch of stuff, then you're probably going to scroll through. Like, oh, it's just probably another post from that person, random, whatever, you know? So,
Yeah, because it won't be as engaging, it won't be as interesting. So they'll just kind of be like, oh, and then they might even unsubscribe or unfollow you. So yeah, you can also decide to use social media in real time as things happen or as ideas come, whatever works best for you. Again, those are different strategies to utilize, and you have to make a different strategy for you and for each of your projects, because each one isn't going to work or require the same exact strategy that you might have used before. Social media strategies, there's people who go to school for this kind of stuff. When they're researching marketing, social media comes in a lot because it's such a big thing that you can utilize to market your stuff, whatever it may be. For filmmakers, obviously, it's our films, it's our work, it's our scripts. So because of that, there's so many different ways of going about it. And just because something worked for somebody else does not mean it will work for you. Just because something worked for some movie that was in your same genre 5 years ago doesn't mean it's going to work now. So there's a bunch of different stuff. It's always changing. And that's why you have to kind of be unique and authentic and just be you, and try to come up with a strategy that you think works best for your project and you as a filmmaker, you as a creative. That doesn't mean to not look into it and not look at all these analytics and stuff, but like Priscilla's saying, is don't define the way you do stuff based on this information, because then it'll feel like a robot is making your posts and making your content. You still want to be a person, and you still want to be relatable at the end of the day. So just pick whatever works best for you. But most people suggest trying to post or trying to update your social media on some kind of schedule, weekly, monthly, or daily, or 5 times a day or 2 times a week or something. Just keep it pretty consistent, because that's going to help build the audience better, because people know when to come back and check. And the more people checking on your stuff, liking it, commenting, that's engagement. And then these social media platforms go, hey, a lot of people are liking this. Well, let's show it to other people and see if they like it. And if they do, there you go. You start building your audience. You start getting your post promoted a lot freely just from the algorithm that's used on whatever platform you're using. You always want to try to create engagement in your content by asking questions or creating surveys. If you ever watch YouTube, the reason you see so many YouTubers ask a question at the end, or tell me what you think, it's because the more comments means more activity, which means YouTube is more likely to showcase that video to other people. Maybe you have no clue what to post. You might want to check out other filmmakers and see what kind of stuff they're posting to help generate some ideas. Like Priscilla said, don't take exactly what they did and do it. If somebody did the ice bucket challenge for their film and it worked, doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And it just will feel like you're copying them. And also, that was an old thing on the internet. So old things usually don't work. So you also want to look at that. But if you're doing something new and different, or if somebody else did something very new and different that was kind of like in the realm of that to try to promote their film, That doesn't mean that you should necessarily copy it, because it'll just look like you're copying somebody else if they got big and it worked for them. So you want to be unique, and you want to really think about what kind of stuff you might post. And it could just be the behind the scenes and the daily of like, this is what's going on now. This is what my plan is, because a lot of people like learning all that stuff and following along with the process and how your process works, because everybody's process is not exactly the same. So consider just doing stuff like that if you have no other idea of what to post. But I would say it's usually the best to have varied content, not just the same kind of content over and over again, because that'll start to get old. So next up comes from raindance.org. It's letter U in the syllabus. You also want to consider researching film marketing trends and seeing what worked and what didn't. There are both free and paid resources like trendwatching.com that you can use to research the analytics and behaviors of consumers on social media. And so trend watching right here, I think that one's paid. You can use that to try to see like what's trending now. And that might not feel like it's important, but if you can get ahead of it, or if you can like get in line with something that's trending a lot lately, maybe Lord of the Rings probably is trending now because of the new show. Star Wars, if there's a new movie coming out, that might be trending. So certain things will start trending depending on situations and different environments and stuff that's happening in the world or stuff that's coming out. And you can kind of utilize that to try to get some of that engagement, that audience that's looking up that kind of stuff to go with, to find your content. And a lot of YouTubers, a lot of social media influencers and stuff use these kind of analytics to follow a trend or to kind of create a different trend that's in the same realm of whatever's trending at that point. For raindance.org, the person who was talking about it, they use different strategies with different social media platforms, and ultimately decided that Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram would be the 3 core platforms for their marketing of their film. With Facebook, they used it as like a family, friends, community kind of social media space. They say Facebook's strategy for their film was about celebrating the film and the love the fans have for the film. So it was kind of more of like a film festival feel with all the posts and all the content that they were posting to Facebook. It was just about celebrating the film in its own and celebrating the fans who like it or what they're saying and what they'll think, and making it more of a community. With Twitter, they created a specific persona for the film that had a tone of voice that resonated with the film. And I thought that was a really cool idea. And I pictured like creating a profile for one of your main protagonists or antagonists or a side character in your film, and they're giving an alternate or first person perspective on events in the film, or as if they were outside of the film and in the real world, and they're commenting on how they would do it. I know Anchorman 2, they utilized that. They made it seem like, the Ron Burgundy was commenting on real world events. So anything that happened actually in the news, he was commenting as if he was in the movie. And that was...
Are you talking about the SNL skit?
No, it was they used Twitter, I think, for promoting the film.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was the sequel to the first one. And so they were promoting it by actually using his character and his voice, the way he talks and the way he would speak about events, because he doesn't really know too much about it. And he would comment on stuff that's going on in the world. So you can do something like that too. You can get really creative with how you promote your stuff. Like Priscilla was saying, you don't have to just do what everyone else is doing. You can do something different like that. Even though other people have done that, where it's a character, you can give a different perspective either on the film itself by just selecting a side character and making them have a profile, or you can make them seem like they're out in the world, they're commenting on real stuff. Either way, it's going to be different because the voice of that character is going to be different from whatever other characters people have used for their own films. And if people like the way the person's talking or how maybe they do a lot of jokes, and they might be more inclined to go actually watch the movie because they want to see this character in the film. And then so that'll just promote your film without making it be like, watch the film, because it's a lot more engaging, it's a lot more creative, it's a lot more enticing to see what this is all about. If done though, just make sure to make it clear that it's a promotional account for the film and not an actual person. You don't want people getting confused about what it is. You also want to make sure to link it back to the film or the website or whatever you have at that point, so that if people are looking into it, they can actually see the film or they can go to the film from there, so that it is helping to promote the film without it being detached from any of the websites or anything like that in your circle for the film. With Instagram, they used it to showcase exclusive behind the scenes content of the film. So be sure to utilize your crew and cast social media presence and using their followers to drive buzz around your film. We talked about this before, but what some people will do, especially independent filmmakers, when they don't have named crew and named actors, like big names, they consider hiring people sometimes based on how big of a following they have on social media. And that's because you can make something in their contract where it says you have to promote the film so and so many times after a certain date, or after we say once the film's released, whatever the case may be in the contract. And then they promote it on their own social media platforms, and all their fans can it's just a wider reach for your film to reach more people. And so that is also something to consider before you even actually make the film is, if you have two equally competent, talented cinematographers, does one have a bigger social media presence than the other? If so, you might want to pick them based on that, if the talent is the same. And then if the talent's not the same, well, you have to decide what's more important. And that's a decision you have to make as a creative and as a either producer or director or whatever you are on that film. What's more important to you at the end of the day? Making sure the shots are really good and the talent is actually there, or trying to get somebody for their social reach, because you might decide social reach is more important if the other person's shots are still really good. They're just not as good as the other person that has less people following them. So just think about that and make sure to put that in everybody's contract. No matter how big of a following they have, you still want them to promote it, even if they only have 5 people, because those 5 people are probably their family, and maybe their family can help spread it because they want their, if their actor son is working in the film, they might be like, oh, everybody come see my son in this film. And then it might reach a wider spread just from that, even though that son only has 5 followers or 5 friends or whatever it may be. You also want to pay attention to your analytics, your own specific analytics, because most social media offers analytics on how your posts and content are performing. For instance, YouTube, it will show the age, the gender, the area that people watched your videos, where they're from, pretty much, or the general region, as well as the length that they watched it for, your like and dislike ratio, and as well as how many views you have, who subscribed, how quickly, where they stopped watching the film, and stuff like that. There's a lot of different information in there. Other social media may show how many impressions there were compared to clicks on the post and other information. Impressions is basically just them scrolling by it. If they actually stop and look at it and click on it, then it's different from just an impression. Impression is just glancing at it. I'm glancing at this Reddit logo. That doesn't mean I'm going to click on it. It just means I saw it in the corner of my eye. That's an impression. You utilize this information to see who is liking your content, who's looking at it, and more, to help with figuring out your target market as well as if you need to implement any changes in your strategy. So if you are thinking you know your target market, but you already have content from your film, like you have your key art, you have your trailer, and you're starting to post that stuff, your trailer on YouTube, your key art on Instagram, and you're going to the analytics and you're seeing that different people than what you thought your target market was are looking at it, you might want to consider either changing your strategy and being like, well, I'm not reaching the right people for some reason. Or you might be like, well, my target market's wrong. These types, like this demographic likes it, not what I thought.
And then you lean into that.
This age group, this area of people, this ethnicity, this gender.
Yeah, because sometimes you're surprised. You think you're going to reach one audience, and then a completely new audience seems to grow and be interested in your project. And it's like, oh, I didn't think it would be so big amongst this crowd. Okay. And then you shift part of your marketing to that, to focus on that then.
Right. And also, for instance, with YouTube, if you see a certain point in your video when there's a massive drop off in views on the video, you might want to see what happens at that point in the video. It could be just slow moving, starting to get boring. It could be low quality, something you didn't notice from the first run of editing it or whatever. Or it could be something else causing a problem for people just to stop viewing. Whatever it may be, you want to try to check if you can fix it, check if you can see what's wrong. Why are people stopping at 10 seconds in? Why are people stopping at 2 minutes in when the video is 3 minutes? Why don't they stick to the end?
Also, don't put super important information in the last few minutes, because a lot of people will like end it before, like a minute or two before it ends, thinking that there probably won't be any more important information in. Or if you're going to maybe say the important information in the beginning, or let them know that there's important information in the end, and then or reiterate the important information at the end, because analytics show that a lot too, that people tend to like watch it for the main thing, and then a couple minutes or a minute before it ends, they just log out.
Because they think everything that's been said is said, and they're just going to say stuff like, oh, please subscribe and whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff you have to look into, and analytics are definitely a helpful part whenever you have any kind of page or profile on a social media account that is for business or marketing purposes. You want to look at that analytics and see who's looking at it. And YouTube, and I believe others, also show where people are accessing your content. YouTube will show you where people came from to watch the video, or where they watched it. If it's linked on like a website, it might tell you that it's this website had 10 views. YouTube itself, like people in YouTube already watched it and it has this many views. And then somebody else came from an app and somebody else came from here. And you'll see like where people are viewing it from, how they're getting to your video or how they're watching it. And that can help you figure out what strategy is working. If you're posting to all of your social media and only 2 of them are getting people to actually go to YouTube and the other ones aren't really getting many views, and you might want to just focus the YouTube stuff on those 2 platforms and figure out something else for the other ones. There's a lot of different stuff you can figure out, and a lot of different strategies, again, that can come up and change. Always have an adaptable strategy whenever you start seeing these analytics flow in, because stuff that you thought would work, stuff that you thought wouldn't work, or just the people you thought were going to look at it might be completely different than what you get. According to spintadigital.com, 74% of people 18 to 65 use social media. So 74% of people in the world. That's a lot of people that are on social media. And social media spans, tons of different sites and apps, but it just goes to show that almost everybody is using it now. 18 to 65, that's pretty much everybody. And so you definitely want to utilize it to help promote yourself in your film and start creating that following. Next up comes from Alex LeMay. It's letter B in the syllabus. The video is the 9 best social media strategies for filmmakers. You want to be confident in your work. but not arrogant. You want to be authentic. He uses the analogy that you wouldn't go to a party saying, watch my film, watch my film. So why do you do that on social media? If you just open the door to a party and started screaming that out, instead of having a conversation with people and they ask you what you do, and then you tell them you make films, and then they ask if you have anything and you show them, that's a completely different way to go about it than just opening the door and screaming it. And if you think anybody's going to watch the film when you just open a door to someone's house and scream, I have a film, come watch it. No, you're not really going to get anybody to care.
Also, don't act entitled like people should be interested in your film, or they like, my film's the best thing, why aren't people more interested, or that kind of thing shows. You don't have to like say it out loud, but it does show. And unfortunately, we've had this even with big directors or producers or writers, actors, where you do see that sense of like entitlement come through of, why aren't you more interested in my film? In the way they word things, in their interviews, and their promotional stuff. So be very careful as well. Even if you do believe that it's a film or a project that deserves more recognition, try not to be overly angry about it if it doesn't get what you believe it deserves.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, nobody's in like, there's no reason for anybody to have to watch your film. Like, there's so many films, there's so much stuff out there, even, you know, millions of dollars, AAA content. A lot of people don't go see it because it's just not their thing, or it's not something they care about.
Or it was promoted terribly. Like, I forgot that director that threw a hissy fit because he said that it was because of millennials that they didn't see his film, but really it's because Disney's promotion was horrible.
Or it's because they market it to the wrong people.
Yeah, and a bunch of people
Wrong
were
age group.
interested, but they didn't even know when it was coming out because the promotion was so bad.
Either way, it's like, so there's so many things out there that there's no reason why I should look at yours compared to others if all you're going to do is say, come see it. Give me a reason. Give me a reason to like you. Give me a reason to want to support you, and give me a reason to be interested in the project that you've done, rather than just telling me that you have a project out there, because there's plenty of projects out there that I can watch. And everybody, they don't like to waste their time on stuff that they're not going to like. So unless they're trying to watch it just to make fun of it, you know, then they're going to like making fun of it. But watching something and just being uncomfortable with it, or just not liking the story, or being bored, can happen, especially with independent stuff. There's a lot of independent stuff out there that's complete crap.
Heck, you
So-
can be bored by the promotional stuff if you're not making it unique and you're just,
There's a lot of Hollywood films that are crap.
yeah.
But at least they have the budget to have some nice visuals most of the time, and that's what can still be like
Or to
the
be in
draw.
your face all the time with how much they pay to promote it.
With independent films, they can look ugly, be ugly, sound ugly, and have a story that doesn't make sense, as well as acting that's not great. So why should I watch yours? Why should I watch your independent project over somebody else's, or over content that is professionally made and made with a higher budget? So yeah, don't get mad when people aren't immediately going to look at your film just because you love it and you think it's a great idea and you put your heart and soul into it and passion and hard work for years. That needs to come across, and that only comes across by you being authentic and explaining, and not explaining, but doing the posts of like behind the scenes and like
Yeah, don't
telling
be
the
like,
problems.
guys, I put my heart and soul into this. Why don't you care?
Yeah, that's not going to work either. Being
No.
whiny or entitled or spammy. So it's about not being spammy, not entering groups with the sole purpose of promoting yourself. You also don't want to be broad and generic. Be specific about what you do or what your film is like or about. If you're a production company profile, you want to be specific about what kind of projects you make. Narrative, is it, you know, do you do other stuff like commercials? What do you actually make? What do you actually want to make? What genre? What length? Do you make only feature films, or we are focused on this and that? You want to be more specific with what you do, because instead of being like, we do everything, you want to be more like, we create scripted content for shorts and features, normally in this and this genre. That will draw in a much better crowd to who you're trying to reach, because now they know what you're doing, what you work on, what kind of content you make. And so if I like fantasy and I like short films and I like to support independent production companies, if I go to a production company that does that, but they just say, we do all kinds of content, then I don't really know what they do, and I don't have a reason to follow them compared to somebody else who has it in their bio that they make exactly with the kind of stuff that I like. Then I'm more inclined to follow them. So just keep that in mind. You want to be specific. He also says another tip is other filmmakers are not your fans. They aren't fans of your work. They are trying to get fans for their own work. You want the public to come to you, not trying to get the small niche market of filmmakers to turn into fans, because that's a lot harder to do. They might help support each other, but are they going to be a true fan of your work, or are they just going to help support you because they want support in return? So that was definitely something to think about, especially with the stuff like Facebook groups. The reason why some filmmakers think that they'll post their film, Reddit groups too, I've seen this a bunch. They post their film in the filmmaking group, or they post their film in the local group around their area or whatever, and they just say, hey, we just made a film, come check it out. Some people will because they like supporting local films, or they just like supporting independent films in general. But that doesn't mean that they're going to follow along with that person's new content or care about what they do next. They might just be trying to support their community. So they're not usually the best place to build a fan base. You might get a few more views, you might get a few people to buy tickets, which is good, and you should use it when you can. But definitely don't think of that as like the main place that you need to post, because you want to build an audience, and audiences are out there just watching content. They're not making films. The ones who are making films, they generally don't have time to watch as much stuff, because they're constantly trying to work on the next thing, work on the next script, work on the next pitching their script, getting investing, filming, hiring people, editing, posting, distributing, and marketing their own film, and then keeping up with it, trying to get paid. So, they don't have as much time as like just the general public. So you want to not really consider them as like the main place to try to promote your own film. If you're teaching though, if you're teaching some stuff about filmmaking, or you're giving them value, like behind the scenes of a cool shot that you did and how you accomplished it, that's one thing. But if you're just promoting your film on filmmaker groups and subreddits dedicated to filmmakers, you're going to have a hard time creating a fan base. Also, quality is better than quantity. If you don't have the time to post all of the time, then make sure when you do post that they are quality posts. So that goes hand in hand with the scheduling thing. Like if you do have the ability and you have the time, especially if you're trying to do marketing, you want to try to pre-create a bunch of stuff so that you can schedule it out, because consistency is important. But what's more important than that is the quality of those posts, the quality of the content, rather than just posting and posting. Because like we said, if it feels like you're not putting in effort, if it feels like you don't care, then why should everyone else? They also recommend being in as many places as you can, because the more social media platforms you post on, the more likely you'll get larger, differentiated audiences. And for those that come across your content on one platform and then go to another platform and see it again, they'll start to see it as more legitimate and be more likely to follow you after seeing your stuff over and over. So again, there's another tip of a different strategy, a contradictory strategy to what we've heard from another source. There's a ton of different strategies you can go with. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to follow what someone else does exactly to the letter. Just because it works for them, doesn't mean it works for you. if there's a social media platform that you, like I said, that you really can't stand, and stop using it. Don't let one platform make you miserable. Use the ones that fit your content best and just work with what you get. You do want to try to be in as many places as you can, if you have the time for it. But if you can't stand one, there's no reason to be on there, because you're not going to put in as much effort that you do in other places. If you hate being on TikTok, but TikTok is where your audience is, I don't know. Your audience is probably not just on that one platform. It's also something to think about.
It is definitely hard. Like, I'm not much of a social media person. I forget to post all the time. I forget to use hashtags all the time. It is hard when that's not your personality and you have to solely promote your work. Like, having someone, like, it would be great if we had someone who, if you have someone on your team that's more their thing, that they love posting, that they're good at it, that would be awesome. And you could ask them to like help manage your social media if that's not your thing, and then you can maybe focus on giving them content. Like, tell me what you need from me and I'll do it. That would be great as a collaborative effort, if you can. If you're doing it on your own, that's definitely a lot harder. But if you have a team, maybe you're a cinematographer, the one you're working with, maybe they're more social media savvy, and maybe they can give you some ideas of what to post or what to say. Because you're not in this alone. Like, more often than not, you have a team, even if it is a small one. So I would say, if that's not your personality, try to see if anyone on your team is a little bit more like that, or maybe can help you with that.
Yeah, but I would also say that, that cinematographer, they're going to go on and work on their next project immediately after yours is done.
No,
most
yeah,
likely.
I just mean in the
And
instance.
the one person who's going to care the most about your film is going to be you. So as independent filmmakers, you really need to be marketers as well, is what most people say, is because if you actually want your film to do well, you have to be able to market it well.
I'm referring
to
to
be able to do
tips. I'm
that.
not saying like how.
No, I
to do
know.
it.
I'm just saying. As independent filmmakers, you kind of have to wear all the hats, which sucks. And that doesn't mean you're going to be the best marketer out there. It just means you need to know how to play the game, how to market it to make it marketable. Because if you don't, then you might have made the best film in the world, but if you have nobody to market it to, if you don't have a sound marketing strategy, nobody's going to go see it, and nobody's going to know you have a great film.
Yeah.
Vish says actors have their own PR team.
Yeah, but not like smaller actors. That's a thing. Like, when we're talking about smaller productions, that's what's hard. Is, for the most part, even as an actor, you might have like maybe a small manager, or maybe like you're working for a small production. But when you're just getting started, it's just you.
Yeah.
Whether you're an actor, a director, or whatever it may be. When you're just getting started, or when you're a small like micro budget, it's just you. So it is something you have to work on and you have to learn. And what I was trying to say wasn't like, oh, have those people help you completely. I just meant like, see what you can learn from them as far as building that and becoming more accustomed to that, creating a social media presence.
Oh yeah. Yeah, especially if you have somebody in your crew that has it, you just can talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Honestly, the most thing I've heard is you just have to stick at it. You have to do something that you would want to see. I like behind the scenes, so I would love to see behind the scenes, and I'm sure other people do too. And so, I might share some behind the scenes stuff. I also want to know how people went about creating a crew and other information. So doing like blog posts, I read stuff like that sometimes just to see how they did it, how they were able to do it with whatever budget or restraints that they had. And so that might be some kind of content that I like to post, and I like doing it. But the main thing that most people say is stick with it, and it just just be true to who you are and what you're trying to do, and don't be arrogant, don't be spammy, and just try to be an authentic, genuine person that's just sharing their stuff, because eventually that'll start to catch on, even if it takes a while. And it will most of the time take a while. The viral people that you hear about that go viral overnight, it's very rare. It's like winning the lottery for the internet.
That said, it can be hard. It can be hard when you have like, man, I wish I could just post all of this. I'm so excited. Or oh, I have to like think about how I'm going to post this over the span of a certain amount of time. So try to do your research, try to get like help it if you can, like ideas and suggestions, and learn from people that have done it well. Like Coda said, watch videos about it. Because yeah, just because like, oh, you shouldn't do this doesn't mean it's easy not to.
Yeah. Guys, next up comes from Indie Film Hustles, letter D in the syllabus. The video is 11 Golden Rules for Filmmakers on Social Media, Indie Film Hustle. With your username, you want to keep it unanimous across the board with the different platforms. I'm LCloud Productions, so I don't want to do LCloud on one, do L Productions on another, do Cloud Films on one, just because I'm on a different platform. I want to keep it unanimous so that everyone knows that it's still my brand, my company, whatever. So same logo, same username. If you're just doing it for yourself as a filmmaker, if you're using what is it called when it's not like actually your name?
Alias?
A DBA, a doing business as name, or an alias, yeah. If you're doing that, then use that same name across the board on all of the different social medias so that everybody can keep track of who you are. If you're doing it for a company, keep the same username for your company, even if it's slightly different from your actual company name, if that's not available. Just try to keep whatever username you get unanimous across the board. You can also get creative with your posts and your social media campaigns. You're a filmmaker, so get creative and have fun with it. Don't look at it as a chore, look at it as another way to be creative and try to get people to see your film, just like you did when you're trying to think of all the shots to do and all the different ways you can make the dialogue better and whatever else with your film. You also can get creative with the way you can market it. According to Outward Film Network, photo and video content generally do 40 times better on social media than text alone. So that's also something to just consider. And that's why it's good for filmmakers, because we should have a lot of clips, behind the scenes photos, production stills of the actual set, of the actual film itself, professional ones, hopefully. The trailer, the key art. We have a lot of photo and video type stuff because that's what our medium is. It's a visual medium. And that's the stuff that does way better on social media than text, because it's easier to see, it's easier to get enveloped in than just seeing a bunch of text on screen. This is what happened in our film, this is what this and that. Instead, you can show a picture of somebody tripping over something, and then you can explain the story like Priscilla said, underneath it, saying, depending on what social media you're on, of course, but you can explain what that picture is. Well, this is when this happened, and then we had to go to the hospital because they tripped on that because somebody left the cord out. Instead of just explaining it in text, you can show it if you have a picture of it. If not, you can just show the person or something, or some behind the scenes that sort of correlates with it to where you can talk about it. Sure, at some point somebody took a picture at the hospital. You can also show that. Use what you have to explain the different stories and the behind the scenes. And the videos and the photos are going to just do better than just text alone. Next comes from Jay Horton, letter G in the syllabus. The video is tips for marketing your independent film on social media. You also want to mix up the kind of content you post. Don't just post the same kind of content over and over and over again. Behind the scenes photos and videos, clips from the film, a joke or a funny photo or comment, stills of the film, small stories, etc. You want to mix it up, use a variation of those. If you do behind the scenes of, there's a bunch of different kinds of behind the scenes as well, but if you're doing the same kind of behind the scenes of just showing like kind of a picture of somebody on set doing their work, and that's all you're showing, that can be cool a few times here and there, but if that's all your platform is just showing this person doing their work, that person doing their work, that can start to get old if there's not anything interesting or different about it from the last one. So you would definitely want to try to mix it up by showing, okay, now let's show maybe a small clip from the film, or us editing it, or this the like I said, like that story of like, this is what happened, this is one of the problems that happened, like a small little story that's written out, or maybe a joke or a meme or something that other filmmakers can relate to, or people who would like your film can relate to. There's a bunch of different stuff you can do, but you want to try to keep it all mixed up and be varied with your content rather than just having the same thing. You can also never have too much content. That doesn't mean you can post too much, but you can never have too much in your catalog waiting to be posted. You'll want to be posting before, during, and after production, especially leading up to and past release. So depending on how frequently you're posting, if it's daily, if you start posting 2 months in advance, you're going to need 60 different types of content to post. That might be a small line of dialogue from your film, that might be a quote, that might be pictures, whatever it may be, 60 different things just for 2 months. And then you also want to post after release so that you can lead people to your film as well. So yeah, you can never really have too much content because you can vary that and spread it out amongst all the different social medias that you're promoting on. He also recommends doing a ratio of self-promotion posts. So for like every one self-promotion post you do 1, 2, or more posts that aren't self-promoting, especially if it's just you as a person. It's like your personal account. Don't have your personal account just be filled to the brim with self-promotional stuff. You also want to have just regular posts in there mixed in. And if it is for a brand, if it is for a production company, same thing. You don't always want to be self-promoting. You want to be able to maybe talk about something that's happened in the industry, or talk about, I don't know, something that's like promoting someone else's stuff, maybe. Like self-promotion over time, if that's all you do, can start to get old and people might not like it as much as being able to have, again, that goes with varied content. So where like you're not always just promoting your film, you're also talking about films in general, or giving tips about stuff like, oh guys, by the way, on our film we use this camera and I think it worked really well. What do you guys think? Just little questions and comments and actual helpful tips about different things that you've learned through the process, or different things that happened on your production, because that's sort of self-promoting without blatant self-promotion. By saying stuff like that. So consider doing things like that to help vary your content and make your social media platform profile not just be about self-promotion. All right, the next stuff comes from Alexi. I don't know how to say it. Uzas, letter I in the syllabus. Why building an audience for your indie film on social media is a mistake. So he has a different approach to it, a different recommendation. He recommends putting more effort into the film itself than starting early trying to build an audience for an individual film through social media. He's specifically talking about individual film social media. So if you just have one project you're promoting, if you're promoting yourself as a creative, or if you are promoting your company as a production company, then you have that longevity of multiple projects, of different things that you're working on and stuff like that, that can help you have make it worth the effort to put in a bunch of time into this social media. But he recommends with individual film social media accounts and pages, don't spend your time before the film's even made trying to do that. Spend it instead on making the best film you can, and then focus on that later. I'm not sure where I sit on it, what I think. I think he has a point, but I think it also can be very helpful depending on what it is. So again, it probably is case by case basis, but he says to start early for an individual film you might want to start trying to build your audience after production or even after post-production is done. He makes the point that for an individual film, you won't have the assets like behind the scenes, production stories, concept art, key art, teaser trailer, etc. if you start too early trying to promote the film and build an audience. I agree, but I also say like you still have like development phase stuff that you could do. You could still do little clips and photos of like, guys, I'm trying to do this. You can still sort of build it up, but he has a point that you won't have stuff specifically for the film if that's all the account is for. So really is no one way to do this stuff. Others argue that it's best to begin as early as possible, even if it's just for a film, a specific film. So there are differences in opinion, and ultimately it's up to you to decide what's best for your project on a case-by-case basis, especially because something that might be good for you and your project might not be good for you and your next project. It just depends. What are you making? How different is it from everything else? And multiple various other things that go into it that make you have to decide what kind of strategy to take. But it is something to consider. And knowing what other people are doing or what they recommend is always good, even if it's contrasting opinions. Next up, indie film hustle, letter J in the syllabus. The video is social media, 11 ways to use it to sell your indie film, IFH 42. If you use Twitter, it is a very fast-moving social media platform. He suggests tweeting or posting more often than you do for other sites. He said, try it yourself, but for him, he tweeted 45 times in one day to see what would happen because he was hearing from everybody that if you tweet too much, nobody likes it and stuff like that. So he was like, let me try this out. Let me see. 45 times in one day for a project or for him as a creative. No one said that he was tweeting too much, and he actually got more followers and traction that day than any other that he had done. If tweeting have somewhere in your post, please retweet, as you'll be more likely to get people to retweet simply just by asking, because it's a call to action. Can you do this? Can you help me out? Somebody might not even be considering it until they read that.
Putting it in all caps too, or like in the beginning of the sentence.
Yeah, and then that spreads the word. So like, oh, that will help you. Sure, I like your thing. I'll share. That's the same reason why a lot of people say, please subscribe or comment or whatever, because it helps them. And if you're not thinking about it, once you hear it, you might be more inclined to be like, oh yeah, I will, to help you out because I like your stuff. I like your content. Also with Twitter, usually the shorter, the better. They have a max length. He recommends not going to the max length. Try to keep it brief and to the point because it's very much about just like being a really quick thing to look at. I would say some, I don't know, I've seen some now where people will like retweet or no, reply to themselves over and over and over again. And it'll be like part 1 of 8, part 2 of 8. And sometimes that can get traction and get people interested, but it really depends on what it is. And I would say for filmmakers and just for general promotion of yourself, smaller is probably better. He also recommends using 1 to 3 hashtags on Twitter, no more than that. For Facebook, he says to use a photo or a video. Same with Twitter and others. Whatever you're using, try to use a photo or video whenever you can. If you don't have one, or if you do have one, but it's not that interesting, you can always put text over it. Like you can create a graphic where you block out most of the photo and just kind of make it less opaque, where it's darker. Is it opaque?
I've always heard opaque.
Probably is. Well, anyway, I messed up that word. Anyway, you make it darker and that way the lettering can be seen easier and it kind of pops more and it just makes it a little bit more visually interesting than just having the text alone. Again, like we said earlier, so that is something to think about. He also recommends boosting posts more than creating ads for posts. because posts, if you just boost it, it will hold on to their likes, comments, and shares. And the more people that see that will think, oh, this person's pretty popular. A lot of people like this. Not necessarily the algorithm in that instance, because they know that you were paying to get people to see it, but it will get more genuine people to look at it most of the time, because it'll have more likes, comments, and shares, and it'll stay on your profile forever after that. So instead of creating a separate ad, he recommends just boosting most of your posts over and over again about your film or whatever it may be. He also says to put a call to action in your bio on Facebook, Instagram, and others that allow a bio under your picture, profile picture. You could say something like, check out my trailer here, or here's the website, whatever it may be. Call to action is just trying to get them to do something. Sign up for my newsletter, whatever you have, put it in your bio so that people who are checking you out can quickly go to it. And if they want to look further, there's a link right under your picture that leads them into everything about your work. All right, this next stuff comes from Visme. I think that's a video actually. Visme is a YouTube channel. Well, the video is how-to tips for creating social media graphics, graphic design tutorial. You want to be sure to use high resolution photos when posting. You don't want blurry or noisy images representing your film or you. Make sure it is clear on whatever website it is. High resolution, because they will have most of the sites have a way to like take away some of the resolution to make it a smaller file. And if you have a low resolution quality file already, then it'll just look even uglier when you upload it to something like Facebook. If you have a high resolution and they take away some of that resolution and data to make it smaller, it still will typically look good depending on how nice you have it. But you always want to make sure that you check it out when you post it. It looks good, and it's not cropped weird, or it's not ugly and blurry and noisy, because your film is a visual medium. You want your visuals to look their best. It's like the YouTubers who talk about lighting, but in the video, their lighting is hideous. You're not really going to listen to them, even if they have good ideas and they're making a lot of sense and making a lot of points.
Or the lighting isn't even their fault in that case sometimes too, unfortunately.
Yeah, but if they're like explaining lighting and they
Yeah.
don't have good lighting, you're going to listen to the person who has good lighting in their video more than you're going to listen to the person who is talking about it but does not have what they're talking about. Same thing when you're talking about film and you're talking about these photos and stuff. If these are photos for your film, if they're your key art, they need to be nice looking. They need to be high resolution. Otherwise, the entire thing will be looked at as crappy or amateur or something like that. And you don't want that. You want people to think of your thing better than what it is, maybe even. So that way they go check it out and give it the chance. You also want to try to implement your brand's color as best as possible. It's a subtle way to create a brand identity. So if you have photos, you can change some of the colors to match whatever colors your production company does. For mine, it's blue, gray, and black for some of it, and white for others. So that's usually what I try to do. And I'm making like the what's it called?
Logo?
Not the logo, that is our logo, but I'm also, when I'm talking about making like social
Thumbnail?
media, the website, or the projects, even in this group, I try to kind of keep it consistent to those colors just because it
Are you talking about the
matches the
thumbnail for
brand more.
The thumbnail for the YouTube?
No, I'm talking about the projects that we
Oh,
do in this exercises and stuff like that. I usually either include my thing or try to have the colors match. I don't really do it as much as I would if I was trying to promote it other places, but I still do it. And I think everybody should when they're promoting, especially because you can always change colors within a photo and still make it look nice. and then make it kind of match better, or give it an outline that's the color of your logo or something, just to make it match a little bit better to what you already represent. You also want to have your font match your brand, the film, or the message that you're giving out, the message in your film. Font does matter, and so you want to try to match your font as best as you can, because there's plenty to choose from. You also, just like we learned when we were talking about production design and graphic design for film, you want to use 2 or less fonts generally in any post. Any more than that, it starts to look ugly and they start fighting for attention and looking weird. Make sure if you have text over a photo that it can contrast well and is easy to read. Light text on dark backgrounds, dark text on light backgrounds. There's a reason why when you go on a website and you change it to dark mode, all the lettering turns white, because then it contrasts well and you can read it. If it stayed black because it's thinking that it's still on the white background, I'm not going to be able to read anything. Well, even if it was gray, if it's like dark gray on black, it's going to be a lot harder to read. So the same thing goes when you're trying to make a picture and you're trying to put text over it. Just make sure it looks nice, it's easy to read, and it stands out. And it's not going to look like you just kind of lazily grabbed some text and threw it on, because that's going to not draw attention. It could probably even deter people from coming to your post, from coming to your channel or following you, because it's just a crappy graphic that you've made. You also want to, you want to ask yourself, is the photo or the text more important in this? Because if they are clashing, you want to choose one to emphasize by maybe taking the photo darker, the photo seen through the letters of the text, kind of like something like this. So you want to make sure that they see the NYC and then they see the photo in the background. That's a cool way to show the photo instead of it just being the letters on top of the photo itself. The other way we could do this is we could have NYC be completely black or something, and the whole photo, we could just darken it a bit. I mean, NYC could be white, and then we could darken the photo a bit to make it pop out. But you want to make sure you emphasize one over the other if they're clashing. So if the color of it's clashing, then which one's more important? And you can do this trick, you can do the other trick, or you can do a few other different things to try to change it. You can also change the color of the text or change the color of the photo, whatever works. You also want to choose colors of the text that matches the photo or an element of the photo so it blends in. So if you do have text over a photo, if that is an actual photo, if that little blue part is, but the rest of the photo looks like this, then you can make the lettering blue, because it's going to kind of match that building in the background and kind of blend in with the photo in a way that looks professional without having those clashing issues or having that contrasting issue, because it'll still contrast against the rest of the photo. It just will also kind of feel like it's supposed to be there instead of being a completely different color. Like if we used orange, I guess orange is sort of in there too. What color? Green, I guess. I don't know. You guys know what I mean though. You want to try to make it seem like it should be there instead of it just like, obviously you put this over the top of some photo that was already there. Also, sizing of the text is important. Too small and you can't read it, too large and it covers the whole photo.
Honestly, I don't like this logo. So.
It doesn't matter if you like it or not. It's just showing
it's
that.
just as far as pictures, it's a little distracting. That's just it could just be my vision.
No, I mean, it can be, yeah, and it might not be a good example, but it is something that you can do as a trick to kind of showcase the lettering over the photo or vice versa.
Yeah, I just feel like the placement of the things don't look the best, but it could, like I said, it could just be my eyes.
It could be completely right. Subconsciously, you can sort of feel when something feels off, even if you can't really point directly to what it is. And so there probably could be something about this that it doesn't look good. This isn't my photo, so I don't give a crap. But
I know.
but
I just don't want to be like rude if this is like an official thing,
yeah.
or it could, like I said,
But
my
yeah.
eyes are very annoying.
But yeah, but if you make the text too large, you cover the entire photo, which if we had the photo on screen and we had these letters, NYC would pretty much cover the entire thing. And so instead, reversing it, blocking out the rest, and just having the photo show through the letters, it makes it work together in a way better than it would have if there was just, why even have a photo if all it's going to be is giant letters taking up the whole screen. And so you want to, when you're creating graphics like that, you want to think about the best way to contrast against it and make it stand out, both aspects of it. And which one's more important, the letters or the picture? In this one, the letters are more important because you see the letters and then you see the photo underneath. Or, I mean, that's what most people do anyway. Or that's what the point is supposed to be. But then too small, you can't read the text. So what's the point again of having the text on screen if you can't read it? So sizing is definitely a big thing. When creating these graphics for social media, you also want to think about composition. Something about the composition in this one, Priscilla doesn't like. That is bad if other people see the same thing and they don't like it too. Oh, I don't like how this PTC is over the end, but this one's underneath the C. Whatever it may be, even if they can't put their finger on it, that's not good. So you always want to think about composition and make it pleasing to the eye. And that's good that you're a filmmaker, and if you're a cinematographer, even better, because you already kind of have an idea of how those kinds of things go.
I just think there's way too many things over and under each other. If it's just like one thing, it's fine. There's like at least 3 things in this image that are over or under something else, and it's a little too messy and busy for my taste. I like more of a cleaner thing and less clustered. Some people like for example, me and Coda are very different like that. Coda likes an image where a bunch of things are happening, and when you look, you see something different each time. And there's a lot of like little details. I like things that are a little cleaner and more elegant and just
yeah, but I would still agree that the composition on this isn't the best, and it's not necessarily, I don't know what it is actually. It could be that it's too cluttered, but I've seen photos that have more information than this. It's probably the sizing as well as what I've already pointed out. This is over it, this is under it.
Is bigger
the
than
arm
the
from the Lady of Liberty is coming out of the sea, so that's kind of distracting. You know, there's some things in there that are like, that was cool, but it might not work the best.
The PS thing is underneath, is behind the C. The PTC is above.
I already said that.
And it's just, yeah.
Well, the focus of this wasn't supposed to be on this specific image. The point of showing this image was just to show that you can block out the background and have it show through the letters.
Gosh, I feel bad because I don't want this to be like an actual thing or someone created it and I'm like trashing it.
I don't know. But either way, well, obviously somebody created it, so you are trashing somebody's thing.
Oh my gosh, see, I feel bad.
There you go. That's good. Constructive criticism, whoever made this photo. But anyway, like regardless of all that, you just want to know that there's multiple things you can do to highlight text, to make it stand out. And you want to color, size, font, and just like what the image is. If you're blocking out parts of the image, if you are darkening the image so that the letters pop out more, there's plenty of different things that you can do to make something stand out and make it still look professional and pleasing. And so consider all that. And if you do have something to say, if you do have like a short little thing to say, putting it over a photo might be a really great way to get it to come across. Putting it right under a photo, but having it kind of be part of the photo can be a way to go around things like Facebook where they put the text first in posts. That way you can have just a photo that has some text at the bottom of the photo ingrained in. And then you can post it and have people read it and see the photo, and maybe it's mentioning something in the photo, maybe it's a comment, maybe it's a joke, whatever it may be. It can help to have text over or underneath photo already, because photo and video is more likely to get people to look at it and get traction. So just consider all of that. This next stuff comes from sproutsocial.com. It came from, it was written in March 2022. This is some analytics stuff. Facebook's number of monthly active users is 2.9 billion. So it's still the largest social platform. However, younger users have started to flock to TikTok and Snapchat, but it still has a huge amount of users. Yeah.
Really?
TikTok, Snapchat.
The fact that people still use Snapchat.
Younger users.
Is so interesting.
We're talking about under 25.
Thanks.
No, that's the age group. That's the age group. Facebook number of monthly active users is 2.9 billion people that log in sometime in the month. Largest age group in their site is age group of 25 to 34 years of age. 31.5% of the users are 25 to 34 years old.
Gosh, it just feels like as soon as I turned 25, I just became like 10 years older.
43% are female and 57% are male. They made sure to include that
that's interesting.
They don't have data on other genders. So it's just female and male. The average the user time for average user is 33 minutes per day. Daily active user count is 1.9 billion. So out of the 2.9 billion that log in monthly, 1 billion of them don't log in daily, but the rest do. So that's why they're still the largest, even though they are starting to decline in their growth. They still are growing. They're just not growing as fast as they used to and as fast as some of the other social media platforms are now. But their daily active users make up 66% of Facebook's monthly users. There's the growth rate. You can look at that. US social network user growth rate by platform. It is from 2020 and 2021 for this information. The article I was reading is from 2022 of March. But this stuff is from 2020 and 2021. So obviously it probably changed some. TikTok went up 81% in 2020. It's user growth.
That makes sense.
So that's, obvious. That's when we started seeing a ton of people on there and doing all the dances and whatever else. Mostly, it was already happening, but there was a huge explosion in more users adding to the site, adding to the app in 2020. 2021, 18% growth. So they're still growing. It was just not nearly as much as they did in 2020. Reddit, 25.9% in 2020, 14.4% in 2021. Pinterest, 7 point whatever percent in 2020, then 3%. LinkedIn, 6% 2020, 4% 2021. Instagram, 6% 2020, 3% 2021. Snapchat, 4% in 2020 and 2.6% 2021. Twitter, 4% in 2020, 0.2% in 2021. So they really halted on adding new users at all in 2021.
Well, that's because people are,
they're getting sick of it, maybe. So yeah, that's something. This is why this stuff's important to look at, because if you are not on Twitter already, and if we look at 2022, if they already have it, the analytics of the user growth rate, and it's again something like 0.2%, then you're like, oh, not many people are adding on to Twitter, which means it's starting to decline. It's still growing, but at a much slower rate. And then Facebook, they only got 3% growth in 2020, 0.8% 2021. However, I would say Facebook and Twitter, honestly, some of the huge ones, the reason why they don't grow so much is because people are already on them. everybody has Facebook already, so you can't really.
Yeah, but Facebook is also one of the platforms where people are leaving the most.
Yeah, but how many people are on Earth? 7 billion, something like that.
Yeah, something like
2.9 billion are already on Earth. So the only way they can get 100% growth is pretty much the entire world getting onto Facebook.
that. No, yeah, that's another thing to consider. Yeah, definitely.
So you have to think about those things as well when you're looking at these kinds of analytics. But it is good to see like, oh, and no, not more people are leaving because they're still growing. So there's more people coming in than there's people going out.
No, I mean, as far as apps go, I mean, in that sense. Like, that's the one where most people are leaving right now.
Possibly, I'd say probably Twitter, but maybe.
Oh,
Either
well,
way,
yeah, it might have changed in the last year. The statistics I watched was 2020.
either way, it's good to look at and just check and see who's, how are they doing, and if I'm not on Twitter, do I even want to start creating a profile on there and trying to build an audience? Because if they start going in the negative, if they start losing users, that might be something to keep an eye on and maybe not join their site. However, if they start exploding next year because whatever reason, then, oh, I definitely want to be on there because they still have people joining. Or maybe they just maintain their users. They don't grow as much as they already have established user base that stays on there.
I don't think
Different analytics or stuff that you want to look at to see the different information that comes up for these types of things before deciding anything. Don't make one decision off of one point of data.
Yeah. Oh, definitely not. That goes for everything. You should never go off one point of data on anything, especially because data companies also are biased and have their affiliations and all that stuff. But I am curious. I could be wrong on this, but I doubt these media companies are publicly showing how many people actually leave every year.
Yeah, but that you can't go off of that because that's too hard.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like, so growth would have to be your best bet.
Not necessarily. Like I said, just because it's not
analyzing.
growth, no, not necessarily. Like I said, Facebook has active users of 2.9 billion a month.
No, yes.
1.9 billion a day. It doesn't matter how much they're growing. There's still a 1.9 billion people that you could possibly reach by posting to Facebook.
Of course.
So that is always, you don't want to just, like I said, take one piece of data and say, this is the best point of data for me.
No. I'm not, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant like of course you look at how many people are on the platform in general, but if you're looking to go, like we were talking about, places where we're seeing the most growth, then that would be a good thing to look at, not instead of focusing on, are people leaving this? Instead, you focus on, are people gravitating towards this still?
Yeah, but also you can also look at it as, okay, Reddit had some of the most growth in 2020 and 2022. It's second on the list. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the best place for me to try to promote my film.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So there's also many other aspects to it. It's just also another piece of data that you want to look at and follow along with, because having all of the information that you can and being prepared and knowing what you're getting into is important. And it's more important than just deciding something based on one piece of data or thinking that something is more important than it is, because growth doesn't necessarily mean it's the best place. TikTok could grow 87% next year, and then everybody could get bored with it. And the next year after that, it could fall off the face of the earth.
Especially because
Facebook and some of the other ones have been around for a really long time. So they also have the longevity of Facebook's still the most actively used account, social media. I mean,
especially because people are saying that it is very hard to promote certain things on TikTok because you either don't have the time for it or it just doesn't serve well to that algorithm, to that platform.
Yeah, so I'm saying like you don't want to just take it with a grain of salt. That doesn't mean necessarily that Facebook's dead and TikTok is thriving and going to keep thriving, because anything can happen in the next few years. If you look at 2020 alone, you would think, oh my, 87%, they're probably going to do at least 35 to 50% next year, probably too, right? No, it's 18%. That's still a huge crap ton, but it's not nearly as much as 81%. and it's a lot newer. So, there's different things to look into when you're looking at this
I
stuff,
feel
not
like
just.
I feel like
And
with-
plus, does TikTok even work well for my content, for what I'm trying to do? Do I like posting to TikTok? Those are things you also take into consideration, like we already talked about.
I
Go
feel
ahead.
like you can't take, like you said, you can't really take, oh, this year it grew this much, which means next year it'll grow that much. Because these things are so unpredictable. Like now we see micro trends are bigger now more than ever. And people's attention spans and like things that they find interesting one minute could completely shift.
Well, that's what I'm
Next.
saying. So, like, you might, if you just saw 2020, you might think that these things are going to do a certain thing, and then they don't the next year. LinkedIn grew more than Pinterest did in 2021, but Pinterest grew more than LinkedIn did in 2020. So it doesn't necessarily mean that these are going to stay on the same row of the list.
Yeah.
It's always shifting, it's always changing. There was one point when Yahoo was the main thing, and then Google took over, and then
that actually was.
MySpace was the main thing. Facebook took over. And, there's so many things that have happened with social media, and it just keeps happening, and different things keep coming along. You just want to keep updating yourself on it and be aware as you go. Also with Facebook, like I said, their new users have started to ground to a halt. So 41% of their users are now 45 or older. So, that the age group, when you group it in different age groups, the biggest age group is still 25 to 34, because that's 31% of the users. But 41% of the users are 45 or older. So if you take all those age groups after 45, it adds up to be 41%. So it's a lot, it does have a lot of older people using it. So it's just something to keep in mind if you're making a film that's targeted towards teenagers. You want to look at this data, and you want to look at the other data about who's going to these things, who's on these websites, who's on these apps, who's using this. Because if you have something that's aimed towards teenagers, you want to go probably on TikTok and Snapchat, Instagram, and some of the ones that teenagers are using. And they might be using new ones now, who knows? But you want to look into it and see the analytics, because that is going to be your best bet when marketing that kind of film, that kind of content. Instagram, they have 2 billion monthly users. 25 to 34 is also their largest age group. That's 31% of their users, 31.2. 48.4% are female, 51.8% are male, and the average use time is 29 minutes a day. TikTok, 1 billion monthly active users. 10 to 19 is their main age group. 25% of their users are 10 to 19 years old.
That makes so much sense. That's interesting.
61% are female. So there's more. This is the first one we see that more females are on than males.
That makes more sense.
39% are male. The active use time, the average use time is 89 minutes a day.
Oh my gosh.
So it is one of the ones that is being looked at the most, and the people stay on it when they're on.
The addiction is real, huh?
Right. 40% of Gen Z say they're directly influenced by products they see on TikTok. Something to keep in mind too. Twitter, 211 million daily users. This isn't monthly, this is daily. 211 million daily users. 18 to 29 is their main age group. That's 42% of their users. So it's a lot younger. It's the younger crowd on Twitter for the most part. 38.4% are female. 61.6% are male. They use it typically 31 minutes a day. So again, these analytics are good because you can see if you have an action film and you know that it's going to cater more towards guys because of whatever action that's happening in it, then you can go to Twitter and to the sites that have more of a male user base and try to dedicate more time there than you would going to, say, TikTok, where 61% of the user base identifies as female.
And young.
And they're all younger, yeah. So they might not even be able to watch it if it's rated R. unless they get their parents' permission or whatever. So
Yeah.
1/3 of Twitter users are college educated and make more than $75,000 annually. So they're also, a lot of them have money and they are educated users,
You
which
wouldn't
is
know it
interesting.
by some of them.
LinkedIn, 810 million monthly users. 25 to 34 is their main age group. That's 58.4% of their users. 25 to 34 pops up in most of these as the main, that's the main age group. 63% access on a weekly basis and 22% access it daily. Only 25% of users are located in the United States. So it has a very large international reach.
Talking about Twitter still?
LinkedIn.
Oh, LinkedIn. Oh, that makes sense, because honestly, I don't know a lot of people that are on LinkedIn.
So 75% are from international countries that aren't the United States. I mean, that could be some Canada and stuff, but still. Snapchat, 319 million monthly users. 15 to 25 are the main age group. That's 48% of users that use that platform. 54.4% are female. 44.6% are male. And they use it for 25 plus minutes a day on average. YouTube, 2 billion monthly users. 15 to 35 is their largest age group. 46% are female, 54% are male, and they use it about 30 minutes a session. So they actually said session instead of a day because people will get on there and watch something, and obviously it's a video. So they could get on there a few times throughout the day watching different stuff, but their average stay time is 30 minutes.
Sounds about right.
And also 62% of YouTube users log in daily. So they have a very active user base and have a lot of retention. All right, I also opened this site. It's from, I think it's Hootsuite.
It also makes sense when you think about the fact that a lot of people that are on other social medias have a YouTube channel or have a channel where they post certain things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of intertwined with other social medias.
150 plus social media statistics that matter to marketers in 2022. I'm not going to go over every single thing. I haven't even actually gone over it myself yet, but I didn't feel like writing this all out, so I just went on the site instead. Social media usage continues to grow. Over 4.62 billion people across the world use it. Social media has grown at a compound annual growth rate of 12% since 2012. 2021, social media usage grew at an average rate of 13.5 new users every single second, blah, 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 blah. Worldwide, people spend an average of about 2 hours and 30 minutes per day on social media alone. 2021, people increased their time spent on social media by 2 minutes compared to 2020. Who cares?
Well, that's interesting because 2020 was a pandemic. You'd expect people to be on social media more. Well, I guess not, because nothing's happened other than, a pandemic. You're afraid.
Holy crap. If you look at this picture, it's like Nigeria, you spend all day on here. 4 hours on social media.
I mean, it makes sense.
Philippines, Ghana, Colombia, South Africa, Brazil, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Indonesia, Egypt. Where's the United States? Oh, United States, 2 and 15 minutes, 2 hours and 15 minutes
all of
on
those,
average a day.
All of those are 2 hours?
No, I'm not going to go over all of them, but Nigeria is 4 hours and 7 minutes a day. Philippines is 4 hours and 6 minutes. Brazil is 3 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. We like to be online.
You guys use a lot of memes.
And yes, we do. Yes,
spending all your time making them.
Don't you know Brazil is the country of memes? Are you kidding me? Like, we're known for them.
Japan is the one to look at it the least, 51 minutes a day. So it's still almost an hour a day, even for the smallest statistic that they're putting on this photo. That's from January 2022. So clearly people are on social media a lot, and that is why it's so important independent filmmakers take advantage of it, especially because it's free marketing for us.
I mean, 2 hours a day in the grand scheme of things. Well, yeah, that actually is a lot. But like sporadically, it's not.
Demographic profile of social media users, 20 to 29 years old is the main age group that uses social media. 18% of all people are 20 to 29-year-old males. 14% of everybody is 20 to 29-year-old females. The next biggest age group is 30 to 39, 40 to 49, then it goes to 13 to 19, 50 to 59, and then 60 plus, because they're only about 4% of the users. Ad spending keeps going up through social media. Clearly, there's more stuff, there's more people on it, so they spend more to market to those people. But that's if you're doing like paid ads, paid marketing, and stuff like that. This is obvious. This is stuff that we kind of already gone over. So let me see. Oh, that's per month. Never mind. 59% of US adults use Instagram daily. That's a lot for Instagram. 91% of active Instagram users say they watch videos on the platform weekly. 50% of users say they've clicked through to a brand's website after viewing their stories. 50% say that they see something they like and they click through to go to their website. So that's important to know, stuff like that, to get an idea of how many people are actually like looking at stuff, how many people actually care, or are they just on the app and these brands are wasting their time. Me as a filmmaker, I'm wasting my time promoting myself because nobody's going to look at it.
Yeah, because some social media apps are better for advertising than others. It's definitely true.
90% of Instagram followers follow a business. You know, if you have a production company that's counted as a business, you could be one of those statistics. Facebook, almost 50% of Facebook users are also on Twitter. That's where that guy was talking about. You want to post to multiple sites. That way they see you over and over again. And if they forgot to subscribe to you on or follow you on Facebook, they can follow you on Twitter, because after they get off Facebook, they go to Twitter and then they're like, oh yeah, that, I just saw them. I forgot, I should have liked them or whatever.
And also more often than not, they will, creepily, but interestingly, if you are like following one person's channel and you're looking at similar stuff, chances are you're probably looking at similar stuff on other platforms as well. So you will get you might get recommended that person on another platform because of that. So like that same person that you saw on another platform, you might get recommended on that platform because you follow or read or watch similar things.
So this statistic is even more of a gap than what the other one was saying. I'm not sure which one's right. Twitter's audience is predominantly male. I mean, that other one said it too. The one I read, let me see, it was from sproutsocial.com, March 2022 article, said it was 38.4% female, 61.6% male. But this site from January 2022 is saying that 70.4% are male, 29 are female. Either way, it's the same year.
Oh.
It's just a few months apart. And who knows, like with statistics, it's not always completely 100% accurate.
Yeah, it's just a very big gap.
But that definitely shows that more males are using Twitter than not. They say the same statistic of 33% of them have a college degree. So a lot of them are well educated. So something else to think about. It's kind of like LinkedIn stuff, a little bit of professional. But it also depends on who you're trying to get. Who's your target market? Who are you trying to market it to? Because there's different users on every single one.
Yeah, I was gonna say Twitter is a thing that you have to be it depends on how you curate it. Because depending on what you're following and what you like, it will recommend you more things in that vein, as opposed, and that's why some people say like, oh, Twitter's awful, which it is, it can be. But it also depends on your timeline, what you follow, who you follow, and you'll get recommended more of that stuff. If you're having the issue of going on Twitter and only seeing memes or only seeing stupid things. It might just be because you haven't either been on there long enough or curated it enough for it to specifically target what you're looking for.
Yeah. YouTube statistic. Out of the social networking channels, people spend the most time hanging out on YouTube. So it's the one that's spent the most time on. I mean, that makes sense because it's videos, it's long content sometimes.
You can listen to it. There's a lot of podcasts on there. So
81% of Americans use YouTube. 36% of American adults say they visit YouTube several times a day.
I do.
Me too. Well, no, not several times a day unless I'm at work, but
I do in the morning and before bed. Throughout the day while I'm listening.
on my breaks and stuff,
Mhm.
just in case someone from my work sees. No, they literally come in and see me doing it. Anyway, LinkedIn. Let's see. 25% of US adults are on LinkedIn. I mean, yeah, LinkedIn is more of like a professional, like, here's what I'm doing resume site. So, like I said, it's not really used as much for promoting oneself as it is for maybe making connections, finding people
I
in
feel like
similar
it might
fields.
be depending on the.
I said as much. It still uses that, of course. Every single thing that has any kind of connection to anybody is used for promotion in some extent.
Yeah, I just mean that I feel like certain social media platforms are better at promoting specific genres, specific jobs, specific areas more than others.
23% of American adults use Snapchat, outpacing Twitter and TikTok. There you go. Snapchat still holds the lead on those,
That is
over
so
those.
crazy.
But as we saw, TikTok is quickly rising. If it keeps rising as it has been, it will overtake the other two quickly.
I go on Snapchat like once a week just because little siblings and some people post there sometimes.
Snapchat reaches 75% of millennials and Gen Z. 18 to 24 years old, it reaches 19.5%. That's their people that their advertising reaches. So the main group that it reaches, the age group is 18 to 24 years old.
I mean, I go on it. I just don't post as much as other platforms.
Here we go. TikTok. TikTok's that dark gray one, 7 right here. What is it saying? Minutes per day. Oh, never mind. That's not what I want. It's just showing how long people spend on it.
The algorithm is actually made for you to endlessly scroll and watch more. Other platforms, I feel like they have different algorithms that are for different things. So
20% of American adults use TikTok.
Oh, that's because the majority of them
All
are
right,
underage.
there we go. But yeah, so this kind of stuff is very important to look at just to have an idea of what's going on in different social media platforms, get an idea of the audience that's already there, because you should have an idea of your target market with your film, with your content, and know kind of who you're trying to target it to. And knowing like that Twitter has mostly males, if you have something that is for females or your target market is female and you're marketing it to them, then you don't want to spend as much effort and time and money on Twitter because there's not as many females on there. So those are just things to take into consideration. If anyone wants to look more at this site, blog.hootsuite.com, social media statistics for social media managers. I'm just going to read through the main bullet points on this, and if anybody wants to read through it, they can. This is from mailchimp.com, M-A-I-L chimp.com, how to market on social media. 1, identify your audience. That's the main thing. Know who you're trying to target. Who are you trying to get to look at this? Who are you trying to get to watch your film? Who are you trying to get to follow your content? If you make mainly fantasy and sci-fi, then you want sci-fi and fantasy fans to follow you. If you get people that like horror to follow you, that's great, but they're not really going to care about your content when you come out with new projects because all you do, for the most part, is fantasy and sci-fi. So you want to target it to people like that like that stuff. Identify who it is. Define your goals. Know what you want to do with this. with your social media, how many people are you trying to reach? Be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. Have a plan. Make sure that you want to try to reach a certain amount of people, or I want at least one person a month to sign up for my newsletter. Whatever it may be, define your goals, have something that's reachable, achievable, and make sure that you be consistent with it and update your goals as you go. You can even change them if it's not working out and you want to go for a different goal, but at least have some kind of strategy. Allocate your resources wisely. That's time, money, and how much effort you're putting into different types of posts. Just like we were saying, if you want to be on Twitter and you have mostly a female content strategy where you're going to aim it towards females, and you know Twitter only, well, not only, but mainly has male, then you can know that you need to allocate your resources towards the other sites more, and then use Twitter as like a backup. Unless you start doing it and you see that Twitter's really taking off, then you can reallocate and rework your strategy and focus on that one more. But generally, it's if you have that and you know that that audience isn't on that platform, you're not going to really take off on that platform. And so you should focus your resources elsewhere and your time. You also want to develop a unique strategy for each platform. There's a different audience on these platforms. We were just reading some of the analytics. So you want to kind of think, what would they like? Well, how can I do it differently? How does Instagram best utilize their profiles and their content sharing compared to Facebook, compared to Reddit, compared to Snapchat, whatever else?
There are also specific studies and polls done on this, on what kind of content is more popular on each social media. So I'd recommend looking into those as well. Like they go into what kind of pictures get the most like on Instagram, what kind of videos get the most right currently in each year or each quarter.
Yeah, what do your metrics tell you? What does the metrics of the site tell you?
Like
where do your competitors post? Where are other filmmakers at?
Like right now, YouTube's analytics.
And then where's your audience at?
Last time I checked, one of the polls that one of the videos that I follow, they talk about this. They were talking about how over the past year or two, since TikTok took over short form content, it still exists on YouTube, but their shift has gone to more long form content. So I think it's something about 20 minutes up. So 15 to 20 minute videos and above, to like hour-long videos. Long form content is more popular right now on YouTube because short form content is more popular right now on TikTok. They're trying
and
to
this
shift
is saying
that.
it right here. So additionally, you'll want to think about how to best use each platform based on what it was created for and what the content that does best, what content does best there. Facebook offers quality video streaming like live video, as well as high functioning messaging platforms that allow brands to interact with their followers one-on-one, or create a group message where you can chat with multiple people or have a video chat with a bunch of people at once.
They are trying to shift that though. They're investing a lot into their YouTube Shorts.
Facebook.
No, sorry, not YouTube. No, YouTube. They're actually investing more.
We're talking about Facebook.
No, I know, but I was talking about YouTube, so I just thought I'd finish it like that.
Instagram supports more visually compelling posts and creative short videos. YouTube is best for longer informational or entertaining video content. Twitter allows for real-time conversations, news updates, and alerts. And if you have a following that's, or something that's really retweetable, it can really spread really quickly, I would say, on Twitter, because it's just a multiplying effect of retweeting and people seeing it and retweeting themselves. Same thing can happen on the other sites, but I've just seen it more on Twitter than anywhere else. LinkedIn works well for long form written content like blog posts. So there you go. There's where you might want to write out the story of something that happened without caring too much about photos as much, but you can still add a photo to the beginning or the end or something to help correlate it to whatever you're writing. But there's where you could help share some information about what you learned or something like that, and that can help you spread a message on that site. Pinterest lets users discover content and relies on visuals to catch their attention. Not really sure. I haven't really heard much about Pinterest being used as like a promoting place, but I'm sure it is. Post relevant content regularly. A lot of people say that. You want to have content ready to go. I've heard people say that they don't have the content, but they have a bunch of ideas ready. So they know what they want to post. If they're like a filmmaker post, or if they're like something like, what is it called? No Film School, or a blog post kind of like that. They have a bunch of ideas for what they can post, what they can make content about without actually posting it all right then and there. That way they have a list and they can just pick through it whenever they're going to post, or if they're making their content scheduled, they can make their weekly stuff. Any of your videos on? Interact with your followers. You want to ask questions, create Facebook groups for your audience, use GIFs, videos, and emojis to spice up messages, utilizing platform tools like Instagram Live to start discussions. And you want to reply to people and be interactive, and don't just be a post that never messages or contacts the fans. Always maintain professionalism. This video sucks. This trailer's trash. You don't want to trash the person trashing you, especially if it's just a troll. Even if it's valid criticism, you don't want to be rude. That's why you'll see like professionals, professional filmmakers and stuff like that, professional film companies, they reply like, thank you, or they just say like, oh, we're sorry that you didn't like it. Hopefully you like the movie, or hopefully you like the next one.
Most people just say thank you for your feedback. Like,
you can do that.
From what I've seen.
You can not reply, but just don't get into a huge argument and fit with the person that's being a dick.
It's a waste of your time, and it also shows a lack of professionalism. And
when we were trying to get people into the media studies group, we had plenty of people be like, oh, what qualifies you guys to do this thing, and all sorts of stuff. And like some of them we started replying to, but really early on we started to realize that it's just a waste of time and there's no point.
And even when we did reply, we were never like, well, screw you. No, we were like, oh, this is, very professional.
Explaining what it is, and like we're not teachers, we're just sharing what we're learning as we go, and whatever else. So, but you always want to try to remain professional, and it's hard sometimes because people can be really rude and really annoying. And another thing about social media is if you pay attention to the negative stuff and not the positive stuff, if all you look at is the negative stuff, it can really get you down. So just pay attention to that. Try to ignore that. It's hard to do, but you can learn to kind of ignore it, or just to pay more attention to the good stuff that people say. Because when you're posting your script, hopefully you copyright it and then post it. Or you're posting your film, or you're posting your trailer or your key art. There's always going to be people that don't like it. And then there's going to be the people that are just really rude and trying to get under your buttons. Or wait.
I was gonna say, under your skin, you mean?
Under your skin. Mess with your push your buttons. Push your buttons.
There you go.
It's been a long time talking. Anyway, so there's always going to be those people, and you just want to try to ignore them as best you can, and always maintain your professionalism, because as soon as you give that away, it's just going to make people that would otherwise like your stuff look at you as more of a not an amateur per se, but just not as professional as they might have before you had some rant, or you.
I would say if you want to explain, see if it's even worth it. Like if you think, oh, well, I'll answer this one person explaining like a little bit more about my project, if I think it's worth it, or if they're asking questions. But if you feel like it's an obvious troll, just don't engage, just ignore it.
Yeah. Reflect your brand identity. We already talked about, some of the people said like, add your colors in. Make sure that your colors are there. You have your unique selling point. Make sure that if you have a brand for your film, or if you have a certain style that you do as a filmmaker, or you have certain content that you create as a production company, you're just reflecting that in your brand, your fonts, your graphics, your color scheme, and all that type of stuff. Prioritize quality over quantity. Again, we hear that. Measure your results. Look at the analytics. See what is working, what's not. How many people are looking at this thing? How many people are liking it? Who are they? You know, figure all that out and figure out if you need to switch things up or if you can keep going the route that you're going. Don't get bogged down by having few views. It matters more about what those people who are viewing it are doing. If they're very active within your community, then just keep doing whatever you're doing. But if you just have passive people and you've been doing it for months, then you might want to switch something up because there's something that's not working. So just, even though it takes a long time to build an audience, you still want to try to like get a foundation going and build from there and have active community for your initial fan base, because that will just make it grow. And that will be the slow growth. If you just have people that aren't even paying attention, they barely look at your stuff, nobody's following you, then there's something you might want to switch up with your social media strategy to try to reach the people that you want to reach. All right. If anybody wants to look and read through every single thing on there, mailchimp.com, M-A-I-L, chimp.com, resources, how to market on social media. So you always just realize that each platform has different main purposes and different photo dimensions for profile photos and for posts. So you also want to be aware of that, especially with your key art, stuff like that. You need to be sure that it works, that you're going to crop it to make it work for a YouTube thumbnail, that it's going to work for a Facebook profile picture. If it's your main profile picture that you're going to use for your company, your logo. You have to crop it in different ways for different photos because some are round, some are square, and some are certain sizes and some are different sizes. Some only allow certain resolutions, sizes, or file sizes. So you have to work around those things to make sure that it's consistent across the board and the main part of your logo or the main thing in your image is shown each time you post it. And then obviously some like Twitter, there's a character amount to how much information you can put into a post. So you have to be aware of that. And that will drastically change how you post to Twitter compared to Facebook if you're writing 4 paragraphs of information out. Social media is one of the best tools that an independent filmmaker has for marketing. It's free marketing, but it takes a lot of work, effort, consistency, and persistence to build a following. If you can do it though, it is greatly worth it for you as a creative, your company or brand, and your film and projects. Does anyone have anything to add? Any questions or comments about social media, whether it's for marketing or for networking as filmmakers? We still have 2 things to go.
Oh, honey, it's already 12:30.
I know, let's hurry up.
All right, you think we'll be able to?
I'm going to.
All right.
All right. The next thing we're talking about is EPKs, otherwise known as electronic press kits. And this isn't that long, so we'll go over it quickly. The filmfund.co, letter H in the syllabus. EPKs are a method of promoting your work and usually sent to press, film festivals, and other media outlets. You want to include a movie poster and professional stills from your film. Look at the examples on screen. They show kind of like what is in these. It's kind of like a, what was it? A pitch deck in a way. Is what I consider it as. It has a lot of the same information that pitch decks have, and it's a way to showcase your film, but it's the stuff that's going to be used to promote it if you ever send it to a publication, maybe some independent publication that writes about films, new independent films that are coming out. This way they can have different resources to grab, clips, photos, and stuff that you send them to make sure that they're using the same kind of photos and it remains consistent across all promotion, so that when you send it to 2 separate publications, they're going to use similar or the same photo to represent your movie. That way it's more consistent across the board instead of them just picking some random thing. So you always want to include your movie poster, professional stills from the film. These help give the public a general feel of your film and provide a visual for what to expect when they see your film. Electronic press kits should include a synopsis and a log line of the film. Next, it should include biographies for both the cast and crew, the main crew, like the higher names, the above the line people. Include full credits list as well, somewhere in there, maybe at like the end. So there you go, that's every single person who worked on it. Include your contact info and where they can find you, like your website, your social media, your email and stuff like that. A lot of the information that you include in different pitching and marketing documents will be the same. You'll just either include something or not, depending on what document it is that you're creating. But that is why it's so important to put effort into each aspect, like the log line, the synopsis, bios, and how you write them and what you write and how you make them interesting and stand out. It's so important because they're going to be used again and again and again in different aspects of the pitching and marketing and distributing of the film. Be sure to also look at other electronic press kits to familiarize yourself with how they look and what info is usually added or left out of most of the others. You want to make your electronic press kit unique. However, you want to make it unique, however. You want to stand apart, so you be sure to include any information that sets you apart, whatever that may be. And that's the same that we've heard of other documents, of course. When you're pitching it, you also want to stand yourself apart. This is basically getting press, getting film festival types, like the executives or the judges or whatever they're called in the film festivals, interested in the film and have something to put in like a pamphlet to help represent the film when they showcase it at the festival. Or the publication to have something to write about, to know exactly what to write about and what photos to add to the post or the blog that they're doing about your film coming out. You want to plan for electronic press kits early. Don't wait until the last minute to make this important document. You are crafting how you want your film to be promoted, so take care with it and have a plan. Next up comes from 20questionsfilm.com, letter I in the syllabus. You want to include a teaser or trailer if you have one, sound bites from cast and filmmakers, like the director and the producer, clips from the film, B-roll, and etc. An electronic press kit is the place where you get all the elements together that are going to best promote your film. Sound bites are 30-second to 1-minute clips from any interview segments that you've had. If you've ever noticed how an actor goes from interview to interview, yet they always show the same clip, it's because that clip was part of an electronic press kit that went with the film. So if they're going on Letterman and then they're going on Conan and then they're going on, what's the guy with an F? Fallon. They always use the same clip, even though they're at different interviews talking about the film, because that was sent along in the electronic press kit that they can use. There's usually around 5 clips in the film clips section of an EPK. And then they choose through those. So, if there's an actor that's going around and doing interviews, they'll pick the one that has that actor in it, of course. And that way you keep hold of the parts of your film that are getting shown and the parts of your film that aren't, so that spoilers aren't getting taken out of context and put into a interview just for promotion. Always be prepared to customize your EPK as well, because certain festivals and larger publications may want or even require specific things included in it. So you might not have everything included in it, and they might request that you include something that you didn't. What kind of camera did you use? Oh, I didn't have that in my EPK, so I need to add that in for this festival or this larger publication. Film Freeway, we talked about this site. Brian brought it up last meeting. It helps you set up your EPK by prompting you to add stills, a director's statement, and a trailer. And then you can submit it with your film festival submission. So Film Freeway is used mainly for trying to quickly submit to different festivals. And so they also have a prompt to help you make an electronic press kit quickly, and that you can submit it directly with each submission you do to each festival. So that makes it pretty quick and simple. And there are also templates out there for creating EPKs, electronic press kits, that you can use, some free, some paid. But you want to plan early, so be sure to set up interviews and hire an on-set photographer for production stills and other things you may not have thought about. Planning early will make sure that you have all that stuff ready to go. Interviews especially, those need to be set up. Those are way harder to do after the fact, because then your actors and your crew are trying to work on their next project. So if you can do that sometime in the day or sometime as production is going along, or at the end of an early day, those are good things to have, because then you can take those little sound bites, little snippets of the interviews and put them in for publications and promoting your film. All right, this last bit comes from premiumbeat.com. It's letter K in the syllabus. They recommend shooting interviews and footage you'll use in your electronic press kit, like B-roll shots and stuff like that, neutral, to give each publication the freedom to do with it what they want. They say you don't really want to do a stylized version. And if you do, also include the raw footage or unstylized version so that they can choose which one they want. Version. Because they might want to color it a certain way. It's just an interview, so it doesn't really represent your film exactly. And that way they can color it to kind of match their publication, or they can color it to match their rest of their interview or their video. Some interviews even splice up the questions and make it seem like they're asking the questions and those are the answers that are given, to make it seem like they are having the interview. And so to be able to match that footage is the best way, and that's why they want the raw footage, or they want the unstylized version. So shooting it neutral, something to keep in mind, or having a neutral version as well as your stylized version if you really feel like you want to style it in a certain way for most publications to use, or most sites to use, or whatever. The main function of the footage and the stuff that you include in your electronic press kit is for usability. You want people to be able to use it in whatever way, shape, and form they can to promote your film. Electronic press kits are usually made into a PDF, but some people also choose to make it its own website or a part of their pre-existing website. Electronic press kits keep things consistent, so your promotion of the film is the same across the board in multiple publications. Reach out to get more info about your film. We'll have the same stuff to promote it with. You may also want to include technical specs in your electronic press kit, like the title, the genre, the production year, the language, runtime, aspect ratio, and more. But again, be sure to check out other electronic press kits of successful films, and especially ones in your genre, to kind of see how they do it. And then think of how you can make it unique with the information that you have. Does anyone have anything to add or any questions or comments on that? Electronic press kits, EPK.
Let's keep going.
All right, one last thing. We're talking about elevator pitches and standard pitches. This stuff comes from the Film Fund. It's letter E in the syllabus. The two common verbal pitches are the elevator pitch and the 20-minute pitch, also known as standard pitch. You want to take time to prepare and rehearse your pitch because you only have a limited time, so be brief and to the point are very important. Being brief and to the point are very important. The worst thing you can do is show up without fully knowing your story or idea. This was all across the board when I was looking at stuff about elevator pitches and standard pitches. Is the main thing they would say is, what can filmmakers do, or what's the mistake they make? And all of them were basically, the first answer they would give is they need to know their story. Or what's the mistake they make? They don't know their story. So knowing script analysis of your story, making sure you know your characters inside and out, and you understand what the message is, what's the central theme, what is happening in any given circumstance. That way, in case they ask any questions based on the stuff you're telling them, you have the answers ready to go. Maybe you don't have the answers ready to go, but you can get it easily because you already understand your film. So you understand why things are happening the way they are. The worst thing you can do is show up without fully knowing your story or the idea, or not being able to properly articulate your story to your audience. In this case being whoever you're pitching it to. You want to be able to articulate it. If it's a very complex story, how can you break it down into small bite-sized pieces that a fifth grader would understand? That is what you want to do. Not saying that people that you're pitching to are stupid, but just you want to make sure that it's really quick to the point and easy to understand and clear, because they don't have much time and they don't want to waste their time listening to you blabber on about what makes your story unique or what your story is about. If you have to explain
Simple,
it.
digestible, and to the point.
Yes. You also want to be sure to research the investors before setting up a pitch meeting. Make sure they're the right for your project and invest in your film. And they invest in your film genre and budget level. Another mistake filmmakers make is not doing the research. They go to investors that only invest in high level budgeted films, or only invest in micro budget and yours is somewhere higher than that. Or they only invest in people that have named actors and you don't. Or they only invest in horror films and you're making an action thriller. That's not the same. And you probably shouldn't go to them. You should probably go to somebody else. So research who you're trying to get to invest in your film, because usually you'll be able to find the information you need to figure out if they would even be interested in actually investing in your film or not. You can also realign your pitch so it coincides with the interests of the potential investor, the producer or distributor, whoever you're pitching to. If they're only focused on how they can get their money back, you can focus most of your pitch on that, because they don't care as much about the story. Yeah, they care about the story, but not as much as how do you plan to get the money. But if they care more about the other thing, they care more about hearing the story and then making the decision on whether that's worth any money or not, then you want to focus more of your pitch on the story. But it's always good to know who you're going to so you can kind of curate your pitch to identify with them and their interests. Elevator pitches are very brief summaries of your project, typically condensed down into a few minutes. You only have moments with elevator pitches, so try splitting it into 3 important sections: the hook, then something that's the hook being something immediately to grab their attention right at the get-go, an extended log line to sort of explain some of the story, not as long as a summary, but not as short as a regular log line, something in the middle. And then the third part being the conclusion, which you can either conclude the pitch with what happens at the end of the film, or leave them in suspense questioning what happens next. With elevator pitches, the goal is to reveal the most important elements of the story while leaving the audience engaged and guessing. The 20-minute pitch or pitch meeting typically occurs when an investor or executive calls you in for a meeting to further discuss the idea or story or script. It isn't always limited to 20 minutes and can range from 10 to 30 minutes. Film Fund recommends staying within 10 to 15 minutes, as adding more may take the audience out of it. And if they give you 30 minutes, you still want to try to do it in 10 to 15 minutes, because then you have time to answer questions and discuss further. And if they really like it, they may extend it past 30 minutes. I've heard of that happening. where they're like, really interested in the story, so they don't care about the time. But for the most part, they stick to that schedule. So you want to try to finish early so you have time to answer their questions. And even just so you can get out of their hair earlier if they don't have any questions. That way, they have a little break from the next pitch meeting. And they'll enjoy that. And the quicker you can get it out, that means the more brief you are, the more to the point you've been. As long as you're clear with what the whole story is and everything, you can get it done in 10 to 15 minutes. With standard pitches, you'll have more time to illustrate your story, and you'll want to bring and include more in your pitch and bring it to your pitch meeting. You want to bring a copy of the script or multiple copies, the synopsis, the log line, a show Bible if it's for TV, a pitch deck if it's for film, a lookbook, bios of the producer and other key crew, and then key cast bios as well, if any are attached. Financing already in place, if any, and your finance plan, the budget and the preliminary top sheet, a director if attached, and then of course your contact information. You still need to know your hook, continue with a log line and summary, and finish with the conclusion, re-emphasizing the crucial elements. Even if you have that 20-minute pitch compared to the elevator pitch, it's just an extended pitch. Still the same thing. You want to kind of set it up the same way. 3-act structure. It's the same as with anything else. The story, you start with the beginning, then you have the middle, and then the end. The beginning is the introduction. The middle is the conflict or the reason why this is a thing. And the ending is the conclusion. Be sure to practice, time yourself, and then practice some more. Pitching is a skill that can be learned, and you can get better at it through practice and proper preparation. Next, this comes from screencraft.org. It's letter F in the syllabus. With elevator pitches, having a this meets that, like it's this film meets that film, or my film is like this, that, or that. That can help really quickly convey the idea so they know the scope, genre, marketing, and demographics right off the bat. And so if you have a unique film, you can still probably tie it to 2 others. This is Devil Wears Prada meets Saw. Oh, what is that?
That's very interesting.
There you go. And then, okay, well, how does that work? Let me explain. There you go. I already hooked your attention just with that. So with an elevator pitch, you have so limited time that can be a really good technique to get it going, to get the pitch meeting out, to get the hook going, I guess. When you are at a festival or a market, you also want to know when to try to pitch. It's just as important as your pitch itself. Executives are busy, so don't try to corner them with your idea. There are mingling areas and times at most festivals and markets that you can go and talk to different filmmakers and different executives and things like that. Use those to try to pitch. Be humble. Don't go around spouting you're a director or a screenwriter. Oh yeah, I'm a director. Oh, I'm a screenwriter. Start a discussion and wait for them to ask what you do and then tell them. And then don't go straight into your pitch either. Say, oh, I'm a director working on a new project, or I'm trying to shop around a script or a film that I have, and wait to see if they're interested in hearing more. Oh, what's it about? What is your script? What is your film? And then you can go into your elevator pitch. If you're just cornering people and you're telling them this stuff and you're getting them at a wrong time, maybe they're trying to go to lunch, whatever the case may be, maybe they're out with their family. It can work sometimes, but it can also really get people annoyed. So you want to be careful with when you try to pitch to people and not just try to be obnoxious and, do it yourself. Try to start a conversation first and see if they're interested in hearing more. If they ask you what you do, you can tell them. If they ask you what kind of film you make, there you go. That's your opening. If they're not even asking, you're just like, hey, I know you're a producer. I have this idea. They're gonna try to run. So, be careful with like when you try to do it, because that's just as important. You don't want them annoyed right off the bat. It can work, but it's going to be a lot harder to get through to them if you do that.
Also, even if it does work, like even if they're like, okay, I'll give you a shot, you didn't give a very good first impression. You don't look very professional.
Exactly. So I would recommend never doing that, but of course, I would say sometimes you also kind of have to, depending on the situation and circumstance. So it really depends, but generally try not to do that because it doesn't look good and it doesn't make you look good either. And also it just makes them less likely to say yes because they're just annoyed at that point. Next up comes from No Film School. It's letter H in the syllabus. Remember to bring a leave behind when going to a pitch meeting so you can leave them that document with the main info about your project after the meeting. That's like the skimmed down version of the pitch deck. The leave behind, that's the thing you leave behind with them. So after you go, they still have the information that is most important. One thing you may want to do when going to a pitch meeting is starting by asking a few questions about them and getting to know them a bit more before even starting the pitch. That is also why you want to have a 10 to 15 minute pitch. I've heard multiple people say the same thing, give the same advice, is you start by kind of easing the tension in the room by just having like a general discussion, chatting a little bit, having a joke. That helps ease the tension and give you a few moments to feel the room out, to get more comfortable and to kind of like see, okay, who's in a bad mood, who's not, can I get them out of that bad mood with a joke before I even start? But be sure to actually listen and not just be in your head about when should I start? Or, okay, is this enough time to get them to be comfortable? You want to actually listen to what they're saying and have a genuine conversation, but don't keep it too long, of course, because you only have a limited time to get through your pitch. But again, that's why you want 10 to 15 minutes. So if they schedule you for 20 or 25, you have a few minutes leeway to do that little introduction chat instead of just starting off with the pitch. But also you want to be aware that not every room is going to care to have some chit chat, and they might just ask you to begin your pitch. So be ready for that as well if you ever go to a pitch meeting. Some like it, like to talk about, oh yeah. Oh, what kind of films do you guys usually do? And they like to talk and, oh yeah, you guys have been working a lot lately. Ha 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 ha, blah, blah, blah. Little chit chat like that. But some are just like, yeah, get to it. You're here to pitch us. So you really have to be prepared for both ways that can go. Generally, they aren't going to be like that, or so I've heard, but they can be depending on what kind of mood they're in. And if they're just like, yeah, whatever, especially if it's like right before they go to lunch or something like that. And they're like, you're the last meeting we have before we get off work, or you're the last meeting we have before we go to break. Then they're like, go on, get out of here. So it really depends on different situations like that. If you have an original idea, be sure to know a little bit about the marketplace. What are some successful films it compares to? Successful both monetarily and critically. That way you can convey that in your pitch. You can be like, well, this film did it, and it's kind of like that, means this, and both those films did this. Or, whatever you can do to kind of convince them that it is a marketable idea, that it is a marketable film. It's better because it's going to be more likely that they give you a shot if you have some data to back you up. One big difference between elevator pitches and standard pitches is elevator pitches are to people who may not necessarily want to hear a pitch. It's more for, hey, I ran into you, let me give you my pitch. While pitch meetings or standard pitchers are set up specifically to hear that pitch. So this is why brief and captivating is important in both types, but especially for elevator pitches, because you gotta catch their attention like that. All right, next up comes from masterclass.com. Here's letter O in the syllabus. Elevator pitches can be as short as 30 seconds or to 2 minutes long. They can be a few minutes longer than that, but typically they're about that range. Is what I've seen from multiple different places. But they can be as short as 30 seconds. So that's why you have to just be like, log line that, pitch. Not that fast, but you do have to have a really quick and concise way of telling your story, or at least grabbing their attention so they want to hear more. Be prepared for questions and make sure you can answer them when the time comes. When you've had a pitch meeting, it can take days or weeks for them to get back to you. So just be aware that they might not contact you right away. If it's around a month later and they still haven't contacted you, you can send a polite follow-up email checking in with the people who you pitched to, just to see like, hey, just checking in, wondering how's it going. See if they'll reply and tell you, oh yeah, we are going with your film, we've just been busy, or oh, sorry, we decided not to. If you get a no from your pitch, don't take it personally and shop it around to others as well.
And if you don't get a reply from that second email, don't spam the heck out of the person.
Good tip.
Yeah, sending.
Don't spam them. Clearly, if they're not going to reply to you after the second one, then they're probably just like not interested. So keep moving, and just don't take it personally. Try not to take it personally anyway, and try to just keep working at it, because it may have just not been a good fit for them or at that time.
Yeah.
You also want to be energetic and confident in all your pitches. You don't want to be sluggish. You don't want to be slow. You don't want to sound bored.
But you don't want to sound like you're hyped up on candy, for lack of.
Candy.
And let's just say candy. I don't want to say any bad word.
Yeah, I mean,
I get restricted if I say.
You don't want to seem like you're on crack, but
oh, there you go.
I mean, hey, I don't know. Maybe they'll relate to that. No, but you do want to be energetic and confident, because you want to make it seem like your story is worth something and that you're passionate about it. And if you're bored sounding, if you sluggish,
when they get nervous.
When you're nervous, you get very quiet. And well, not you. I'm just saying in general, people get more quiet and they get more. I don't know how to say it. They basically go into themselves more. Like they overthink things.
Or they get super loud and overly talkative, like me. So that's another thing too. Like you can end up over talking or getting louder.
I think pitching would be good for you, because you'd have to figure out how to concisely put it together. Oh, you're talking too much. You gotta.
Or I just be nervous and say a bunch of crap I'd regret later. So.
Maybe. Either way, energetic and confident is better than slow and bored sounding. Because if you're like, yeah, I'm a movie, I'm trying to do that, and then there's a scene where this guy sees this other person and they fall in love, that's not going to work. And probably that pitch isn't going to work either, because it's awful. but you want to be energetic about whatever project you're working on, and make sure that you're putting in effort to the pitch itself. Also, you want to prepare by practicing in a mirror, timing yourself, actually timing it, how long it takes you to get through your pitch. And then you also want to do the pitch in front of people if you can, your family members or friends or whoever you can get to listen. Because I think we said this last time, but they might ask a question that you're like, and it completely throws you off. And it's something you didn't even think about. And you don't want that to happen when you're doing the actual pitch. It can happen, and it's sometimes not that big of a deal. But if you have the answers to it, and you're already prepared with some of those those questions that can make you draw a blank, because you've already heard it from other people and you've come up with the solution and the answer to it, then it'll just seem more professional. It'll seem like you're more prepared, or like you know your story even better. So if that does happen in the actual pitch, it's not an end all. It's just, practice with it and get better at it. But try to practice as much as you can before you actually go to do the real pitch. Even if it's an elevator pitch, you never know when you're going to need it. If you have an idea, if you have a film that you want to do, and you're going to places specifically to connect and network, then have it ready. Practice with it and have it ready to go. Try to keep it as concise and small as possible. because you never know when you're going to run into somebody that may be the producer on your next project, or maybe the next financier for whatever you're trying to do. Does anybody have anything to add or any questions or comments about elevator standard and standard pitches?
Nope, they're all ready for bed.
I bet you all are. I'm ready for bed too. All right. Thanks for staying this long, guys. Next on Thursday, we're going to be talking about progression and structure. Well, we might talk about that. I'll see what this stuff says and if I feel like that's something important or not. It is, but I don't know how much is going to be in these sources. But anyway, media relations and public relations, event marketing, press junkets, and influencer marketing. We'll talk about all that, how you can utilize it if you even want to as a filmmaker, and more on Thursday. Hope you guys have a few good days and have a good night, everybody.
See you on Thursday.
All right, good night.
All right, good night.